6 o'clock. We're going to call this meeting to order. We're beginning with the Committee of the Whole. Do we have a motion this evening?
We do. I would like to make a motion to approve the remote electronic attendance of 2nd Ward Alderman David Parker, 3rd Ward Alderman Mike Wendt, 6th Ward Alderman Kevin Schoonmaker.
Second.
Go ahead, sorry. At the Committee of the Whole and council meetings of October 27, 2020.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Moyer and a second by Alderman Waldron. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Wentz.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Walton.
Aye.
Berg. Aye. 8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. We now have our remote attendees participating. Are there any questions on the agenda this evening? I do have one thing that I wanted to run by all of you. I think that this meeting will be a little long. I would expect it to go about 3 hours. And so I'd like to execute like our special session, take a 5-minute break at the top of the hour just to stretch our legs and stay fresh for the meeting. So is there any objection to that? All right, then that's what we'll do. And then beginning with the agenda items, this other was just added, and it was associated with the article that was in the paper Saturday morning. So it was published online, it was in the paper Saturday morning, and I've done some investigation on it. I know a little bit more about the situation than I did Friday, but I wanted to talk about it. So I don't know if everybody here has read the article. I don't have the title of it. Does anyone recall the title of it? Something about requests for inspections piling up.
Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Moline has no health inspector and requests for inspections are piling up, according to the QC Times.
So when I read that, it was news to me. So I was unaware of that situation. And I called around to some of the aldermen, and I wasn't able to find an alderman that was aware of it either. Nita Ludwig was cited in the article for confirming it. So that was the only source that confirmed it. I even talked to Alderman Potter, and Alderman Potter didn't have any independent knowledge of there being delayed inspections, but was quoted in the article, and he hadn't provided the information, but Nita had confirmed it. I talked to Nita. Nita told me that she didn't confirm it. I later believe that she said something that indicated that it was true, so I think it was just some misinformation, but Nita said that she didn't confirm it, that she doesn't have that specific information, and she wasn't aware of a piling up of inspections, although they had been helping us since our vacancy had occurred. So that's kind of what I discovered about it. I've done some additional research, and I had staff pull information for me, like what we've done for inspections in the past, what triggers a request for an inspection, that kind of information. I got confirmation from JD, and JD's here. I don't know, is JD available?
He's here, yeah.
Thank you. And so he oversees the health inspectors. He's the highest up as a director of public works, and so he was able to check the information. But while we're waiting for him, he also confirmed that there was not a backlog of requests for inspection. So that's the situation. It was concerning to me because I felt like it gave the impression to the community that maybe our restaurants weren't being safe, or that we weren't verifying that they were safe. I do not believe that to be the case. I think that it was some misreporting of the situation. We certainly do have a vacancy, though. JD, I was just kind of speaking for you, and I thought since you were here that you had provided information as the director of the department that houses the health inspector, that you were able to verify to me that we did not have a backlog of requests for inspections. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. No,
Thank you.
And I'm not personally involved with it, but I did check with our staff, and we've had a couple new restaurants open since our vacancy, and we directed those to the county and helped facilitate the opening through their services. The same thing with a couple plan reviews that we had to have done, and they did those for us. So
Perfect.
us like you, after Carol drew my attention to the article, I think it was Saturday, Carol, is that when you reached out to me? It was the first that we had heard of it as well. Joe confirmed that he had no reason to believe there was any kind of backlog either.
Right, and it is, I mean, doing the health inspections is yeoman's task. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that everything is being checked and followed up on. And Andy did a great job for us, but in the year of COVID, it certainly has been different. So like the last, I guess I didn't add these up, but generally, the last 3 months that Andy was here for the full month, he did 11 inspections, the dates that I had, the documentations that I got. He did 11 1 month, 8 1 month, and 2 1 month. The previous year, there had been 45, 34, and 25, and those are the months of May, June, July. So I think that COVID significantly impacted that work anyway. But I just wanted to assure the public that our restaurants are safe, our restaurants are well run. We have good documentation of that, and to reassure them that, you know, sometimes things are printed and may give an indication that isn't accurate. So if the community ever has any questions or concerns, please reach out to, you know, either your elected officials or our professional staff, and we will try to make sure that we get you all the information that you need. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? So we're,
Your Honor, could I offer one more thing? That
Uh-huh.
we have also been the intake for, you know, when people have concerns about maybe restaurants where folks aren't following the mask guidance and that, and we're actually taking care of those in-house by the first contact, just going out and giving them those gentle reminders. I think that was Consul's will at the time, and then we pass it on if there's a repeat.
yeah, that's perfect. So JD's just referring to our role in the enforcement of the government's order, that our first step is education, our second step is providing notices, and we are doing that in-house. And then we share the notices that we issue with the county that has more enforcement authority than what we have. Alderman Potter, did you have something you wanted to add?
I guess my concern is that, given the number of inspections that he did pre-COVID, you know, I know the history here and that we previously relied on the county for inspections and they weren't being done at the level that the previous council preferred them to be at, given the fact that we have an enormous amount of restaurants and other food serving industries in town. And that was the concern that, you know, at some point in time, I think we're going to need to backfill that position to ensure that public safety continues to be covered.
You know, I think that is a very good argument. When the way that it works is it's really the health department's responsibility for the inspections, but somewhere along the timeline, the city of Moline, the city of Rock Island, and the city of East Moline all took that responsibility in-house. One of the main advantages from my perspective of keeping it in-house is that we actually charge lower fees than what the county charges. So as soon as you put that responsibility back on the county, it actually impacts our restaurants because it'll cost them a little bit more. It's not a lot, but it's significant when you're running a restaurant. So there's reasons to do it. I know that I was in one meeting and Marty has been in another, and I think there's a meeting coming up to better complement each other, because we each have one inspector typically on staff, and they go on vacations and they get sick, and so we cross cover, and we've had problems with consistency in that, and so the municipalities are talking to each other to figure out, you know, what's the best way to provide that service across our municipalities, and how do we do that in the best way that provides the safety we're looking for our community, as well as consistency for our business owners. So I know all of that is in the mix, and it's something we're going to talk about later with GovHR's specific recommendations. So we'll have an opportunity to really debate that specific inspector role and how we want it to be handled moving forward. So that's on our agenda. So moving ahead past that, there was another component of that article that was distressing, and that was, oh, sorry, did you have something? I'm sorry.
I thought you were moving to a different topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm still talking about that article. So our previous health inspector expressed the way it made him feel, that he was feeling threatened that he was going to be laid off. And so back in the spring, and it happened with the library as well. Back in the spring, we were looking at how to align our expenditures with our projected revenues. Some different ideas were brought forth. I think that something went wrong in the way that was processed, and that was that the employees, there were employees that were notified that they may be getting laid off. The union was notified that there may be layoffs coming, so it was an informal notification, but they were notified nonetheless. I think that caused some stress and disruption and distraction from the work at hand. And so I wanted to bring this up to the council. What I'd like for you all to consider is embedding in our ordinance the idea, the restriction that directors would continue to have, directors and the city administrator would continue to have complete authority to terminate an employee. So if there's something going on, they have that authority, and that's an important authority to have when you're leading a department or leading a city. But when we're talking about layoffs that are being triggered because of financial motives, I think that should come from the council floor. That's a policy decision of addressing a financial gap. And so what I'd like for you to consider is restricting layoff notices, whether they're formal or informal, to the council's direction so that doesn't happen again. Is there any discussion on that?
John, are you looking for a motion on this?
I am looking for a motion on it if you're supportive.
I would make that motion.
And I'd second it.
Second, Schoonmaker.
So we have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by Alderman Schoonmaker. Is there any discussion on that concept? Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah, I think that this is a really good idea because I think what we've discovered is staff had made a number of recommendations. There was quite a few. Some of them we moved forward with, voted on in open session to move forward with. Others that we rejected, some that maybe one or two aldermen may have indicated to a staff member that they would be in favor of it, but the rest of the council had no input on it. And something as important as laying off our employees certainly should be done in an open session and the will of the council, and force the council to make the public declaration of what they're going to do, if that's the intent of what they want to do. And this would prevent some staff members or people who for whatever reason, whether wanting to box somebody into the corner or trying to thinking in good faith that they're trying to protect the council from not having to make a policy decision is just not how open, transparent government works. And so it should absolutely be done on the council floor in open session. And so I couldn't agree with this more.
Yeah, I think that, we've tried to correct it as much as we can. This situation, I mean, we're aware of it. I learned after the fact that the union had been notified and the employees were notified before we even had an opportunity to, as a council, discuss that as an option. So we've issued the direction that there'll be no layoffs the balance of this year or in 2021, which I think makes that correction. But I think that we need to do more. We need to prevent it from ever happening in the future for good governance. Alderman Potter.
Well, I appreciate the effort here to correct this situation, but in fact, those discussions about layoffs did occur in private, in closed session, on more than one occasion, I think, I'm pretty sure. So I think it's a little disingenuous to start, claiming that we need to do all of this in open session when in fact it did not occur in open session. And I can tell you I did not share any of that information with anyone. And I don't know who did, but I would agree that it's a policy decision and it should be handled very carefully. But I think we need to be honest with everyone that those discussions did occur.
Are you saying that you're not aware of how the employees discovered that they were being considered for layoff? It was a notice by JD, you sent
Well,
it out, didn't you?
I think I do, but I mean, and beyond what he told them, I didn't share anything with them. That's all I'm saying is that.
Oh, yeah, no, then that's what I'm trying to get in front of. So we do have discussions. We have discussions in open session, we have discussions in closed session. But that's a discussion. That's different than a motion by this council, a decision by this body to make a decision on behalf of our community. So we all have our individual perspectives. And I don't think Alderman Wint is indicating that we don't consistently, or that we consistently think about things the same way, but we act as a body, and that action never took place. There was never an action by this council to lay anybody off. Alderman Wint?
Thank you, Your Honor. To Alderman Potter's point, I mean, we do, like if we're negotiating with a developer or those sorts of things, certainly there may be appropriate times where you have some discussions within closed session, but that doesn't then mean that a staff member can go out and tie the council's decisions by saying, hey, we're going to do this or whatever. No, we would have to come out and we would have to make formal action on the council floor, transparent, with everyone's knowledge, and have to put our names behind our votes. And it's no different with this. I think that some of this particular, when it comes to these individuals learning about this possible layoff, it came from a few notes a staff member had with a couple of aldermen who the staff member felt was in favor of it, and in no way, shape, or form was it anything that the council had voted on or encouraged or wanted to have happen. And so if we did, we would have voted on it. And I think that by memorializing this in an ordinance, it then will give our staff members some solace and some feeling of safety that if they're just hearing rumors from one staff member or an uncouncil staff member without the action of the council, it's meaningless. It only has meaning when it is done in open session and voted upon. So I think that this is very important.
Is there any other discussion on this? Roll call, please, Jeannie.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. And before we leave this topic, I would like to, kind of represent the council's feelings on this to the library board. We don't have authority over the way that they process that, but I think that a policy like this would have benefited them as well. I think that they were heavily influenced, thinking that something had to happen because notifications had been already issued. And I'm encouraging them to consider making some adjustments in the way that they have their governance set up to do the same type of restriction. So I'll follow up. If the council concurs, I'll follow up with our president and make sure that they understand that's within their authority.
So, Mayor, can I
Yes,
ask a
Alderman Berg.
question? So we did not give information to the library board for them to lay off their employees, correct?
So, I think we had a similar experience to what they had, but they didn't realize that they had more autonomy than what they had. And so, they were approached like we were approached after the fact. Notices had been given to the union. Notices had been given to the departments and their leadership. And then we talked about it. And we rejected the idea the library board, whatever transpired in their meeting, they did not feel like they could reject the idea. And so that's how that went down. We have limited, I mean, even if they had made the decision of laying off and we had disagreed, we didn't have the authority to stop that. Right. So they're separate. It's different. The library board's different than the Parks Board. We have a lot more influence over the Parks Board than we do the library board, so they're a little bit unique. But I think we're just trying to resolve all that. So that's it. That's it for our health inspector article.
Your Honor?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Schoonmaker. I'm sorry.
I just, certainly the Times didn't intentionally write an article that was not factual. So I'm sure they would want to make a correction to that and get something out in the public. We don't want the public to be misinformed. Can we have staff reach out to Sarah Hayden and actually have a factual conversation with her? I'm surprised she didn't actually contact our staff. She just contacted people that were already gone, and make sure that we get that out, because the public, beyond what the people that are listening to this meeting, the public needs to know that that was not factual, that there were some errors and it should be corrected.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak with Matt Christensen, trying to understand, where the information, how the information flowed in that way and why it flowed in that way. And he was very helpful in our discussion today, and I believe that that's his intent. He had intended to cover this discussion, and then we, of course, have data and information that would be available to the reporter for if she was inclined to do a follow-up story. So, yeah, I don't think it was their intent to not provide accurate information to the public.
Sure.
But it was just an unfortunate situation because it was not accurate and it influenced the way people were thinking about what was going on here.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are gonna get through some of these agenda items. We are beginning with item number 2, or not beginning, but the next item is item number 2, amending Chapter 35 of the Moline Code of Ordinances, personal storage. Chris Mathias.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this is back to the topic of personal storage, or also known as mini storage. The council directed staff to consider tightening up the ordinance that deals with mini storage. We considered a couple of things with our plan commission. One would be some aesthetic controls, but in our code, we already have some aesthetic controls that mini storage and those type of buildings need to really match the surrounding development. Can't really do just the agriculture type looking buildings any longer anyway. So what the plan commission came upon, what staff recommendation is today, is to remove personal storage, the personal storage land use from the B4 zoning district. This is your typical zoning district along John Deere Road at the mall where all your big box retail is. So the thinking behind this would be, we've seen some of those stores converting over to mini storage lately and trying to preserve some of that commercial land for actual commercial and restrict this land use to the industrial zoning. So that's the staff recommendation to concur with the plan commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Potter, a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Nguyen?
Chris, can you remind us, it's already prohibited in B3, so this would result in it only being available in the industrial zones, is that correct?
That's correct, only in I-1 and I-2.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Item number 3, amending Chapter 35 of the Moline Code of Ordinances, fences.
Yeah, so if you remember last time, we restricted fence height to 6 feet in certain zoning districts, but there was this idea if you backed it up into the setback, you'd go taller than 6 feet. So council wanted to pass that, but we had, as part of that discussion, a direction from staff to come back with some exceptions for city-owned property and park-owned property. So what this would now do, if you can read in the code, I'll just read for you what it says now, but Except for fences in resource and industrial districts, wire fences are prohibited in front of the principal structure and in side and rear yards that are adjacent to public and private street right-of-way, not including alleys, except those, and this is the change, securing the property of the city of Moline or the property of the Moline Coal Valley Community Unit School District 41. What should say District 40 there. Wire fences are no longer permitted in front of the principal structure of utility uses, and all existing wire fences in front of the principal structure of utility uses are, upon the effective date of this ordinance, declared legal nonconforming. So no such legal nonconforming fence may be replaced except with permitted materials, and all such legal nonconforming fences must be replaced with permitted materials no later than December 31st, 2030. So they would have to conform to that, to this ordinance by 2030. So staff's recommending approval of this.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Borg and a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll call, please, Janine.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. The next item will be led by Chief Galt, multi-jurisdictional law enforcement agreement. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, great. Well, before you, I have an agreement that is updating Resolution 1085-2009. This was last before you and signed June 23rd of 2009. Back in March, I began looking at contingencies and intergovernmental agreements, and we started to put into place some continuity of operations plans for our COVID response. And we discovered that this IGA that's been in place since 2009 was quite outdated. To give you a reference, the only signator on that agreement that is still in that same position is Decker Plain as the city administrator in Bettendorf. So kudos to him for his long tenure there. But no one else that signed that agreement is in their same roles, mayor or city administrator or police chief. So I began discussing this with the area police chiefs that we needed to take a look at that, and they all agreed. So over the course of the several months, we had those discussions, was circulated around to the other police departments and the Quad Cities Chiefs of Police Association. And so before you, I just have some updates, and of course, Dirk has reviewed this agreement and the document and concurs with it. Several cities have joined this agreement. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go to Albany or Comanche or Clinton, but some of their neighbors might. And we do assist our neighbors like Rock Island and Rock Island County and East Moline quite regularly. So it is important document for us from a liability and authority perspective. The agreement was perpetual, so it's still in existence, and not necessarily anything wrong with it per se, but we certainly want to update it to make it more reflective and have some better liability protections. And again, this will be a perpetual agreement, but as you see that the initial agreement will be 5 years, and the goal would be to update this every 5 years, but it has a safeguard that if for some reason that doesn't get done, it continue on until we get new signatories. Just a couple of highlights to point out, just changes that you might be questioning. 5B adds life-threatening situations that we can use this agreement. 5C, natural or man-made occurrences that overwhelm cities' resources. Number 9, workers' compensation benefits lie within the jurisdiction where that employee is employed. So if our people go to Iowa, they don't get Iowa benefits. They would remain in our workers' comp benefit rules and regulations, and vice versa for other jurisdictions. Number 12, you're responsible for your own equipment. So if we go somewhere else and it's damaged there, that's still our responsibility, and vice versa. And 13, there's some updated hold harmless language. I'd have to defer to Dirk if he has any comments about that, but some better liability hold harmless update. So that's what I have for you today, and staff recommends approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Potter, a second by Alderman Williams. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Item number, thank you very much, Chief, and thank you for your work on that. Item number 5, Walter D. Laud, change order, 19th Avenue. Joe Kuhlenbeck will be presenting. Joe, are you virtual tonight?
I think he's calling in, yeah.
Joe, if you're talking, you're on mute. Joe? Let's go back to that item. The next item is item number 6, revising the telework policy. Marty Vonix.
Let's go.
No, you're not going. You're doing item number 6.
All right, sorry. We created this telework policy, you created this telework policy when COVID hit. And what I asked HR and our labor attorney, Margaret Kostopoulos, to do is to take a look at that telework policy, because we had additional requests for people to be on that list, and to make it a telework policy that's comprehensive to the city with no regard to necessarily emergency situations. So an over-encompassing telework policy. And so today in the foreseeable future, the city will probably be coping with a variety of issues that will impact the workplace, particularly COVID. As you all know, we're in a surge right now. And so we wanted to create a policy that would be in place regardless of surge or major snowstorm or whatever it might be that impacts our workforce. And so, you know, we have a productive workforce. I think they've shown their diligence and their loyalty when they were home during this crisis. So I think that having this type of policy in place will be helpful, not only for managers and directors, but also for the employees that have to stay at home and can be as productive as they could be if they were at work. And so Allison and Margaret have worked on this prior to the most recent surge we're facing, actually. And I think we have a good policy that is flexible. It provides for enough oversight by the administration. So staff recommends passage of this revised policy.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer and a second by Alderman Nguyen. Did I get that right, Alderman Nguyen? Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Any concerns, Alderman Berg?
I do have a question, Marty, on this, one of the paragraphs in here that you state. Eligible employees would now be able to telework temporarily for circumstances including inclement weather, special projects, or business travel. Other short-term arrangements may be made for employees with personal or family needs, which prevent them from reporting to their usual work location. Who is going to determine which family, that employee's family need is versus this person's employee family? I mean, who's going to determine that?
The determination is made by their manager or director.
And we're going to work to keep that fair because.
Of course, yes. And a lot of that is also regulated by, I think, FMLA rules and laws and labor regulations. I know that Allison is on, she can maybe answer that question more specifically.
Is she on? Let's see her up there.
Allison,
did you hear the question?
Yes. Certainly, we would be as equitable as possible. I think we would look at each situation individually. A lot of times there are unique circumstances, but I don't know that this is going to be an everyday occurrence, but it certainly gives the directors flexibility to keep getting the work done productively. If the best place or the only place they can be is in a remote location, then this gives them that flexibility.
Another question I have here. The next question is, are they given laptops, or what is it that they're going to be working off of? I mean, I'm concerned with finances, are out there. Are they doing it on their home computers? Are they on laptops? Help me understand that.
Sure. No, we absolutely had the same concern. IT has been wonderful actually about having the proper equipment deployed. With COVID, they had to react very quickly in providing equipment. So that's something that David and I have actually talked about recently, in making sure that we have updated equipment and equipment available specifically for COVID right now, that if we had to redeploy and have people telework again, that he's prepared for that.
One more question, Mayor.
Alderman Burr.
Another question, I guess I'm a little, now I'm gonna go directly to HR. I don't understand why we would have all of these positions, the assistant, the manager, the specialist, two specialists that would be eligible for this, when we are looking at police, when we're looking at executive level positions. I mean, how did you guys determine that? And, I don't know. I don't understand why we would have, I guess I'm looking at some of those positions that would need to be doing telework. And I don't know if that's for Marty or
Well,
Allison,
let
whoever.
me start by saying that, obviously some work can't be done at home. If you're a public works person, you're out fixing a sewer, obviously that doesn't make sense, but there's a lot of work that can be done from home. And I think that's basically the difference between how you determine one position or another position is available for work at home. And Allison can say more about that if she wants.
Right. We took a look at, those positions. I don't foresee every position being gone at the same time. I think if you look at this as a forward-thinking policy, that these are eligible positions. So it's not everybody all at once, we're closing City Hall, things like that. These are, I guess, office-type positions typically. Some are in, different departments, public works, police, fire, but they're higher level positions. So I'm not sure if that addresses your question. Are there specific positions that you're concerned about?
Yeah, it does. It just, I see some of the HR specialist positions, I just don't see, I'm not looking at, I guess I'm trying to understand why those would be positions that would be, that they would qualify for this, like I said, I'm not seeing a finance specialist come in there or a fire specialist come in there. I'm a little.
Well, Alderman Waldron.
I have a different topic.
Oh, different topic?
This item, but a different.
Okay.
I don't know.
Alderman Waldron, go ahead.
Allison or Marty, so we never had a telework policy up till COVID. So COVID comes along, emergency situations, and we do this. Now what we're saying is that we obviously like the telework policy that we developed under COVID, and we're trying to continue it on for non-COVID related things. So that's basically it. We're just now going to use telework a lot more often than we have in the past.
Well, I think it's an available tool for managers if they deem it's appropriate and necessary. Yeah, but I don't think there's a director or manager here who doesn't not want to see people in the office. But it's available, and it's a lot of companies and a lot of organizations are resorting to these kind of policies so that they can keep employees productive if they're forced or need to stay home for some reason.
And don't get me wrong, I understand the COVID part of it completely. I'm just wondering about the potential abuse in the program for somebody who has a sick child and decides they're going to stay home with the child and avoid using their sick leave balance because they can telework. So there's a certain advantage to this telework policy that I can see being abused by certain individuals.
It could happen, correct.
Well, and I would like to challenge the concept of it, because I think what we're trying to do, or what staff is trying to do, is identify what positions could telework. Now, I think there's still a conversation about what positions should telework and to what extent that is. And I think we're giving them the leverage through this policy to be responsible for that. They're responsible for the effectiveness of their department, right? I think that you're not the only one that has that concern. A lot of organizations have, given more and taken it back because it doesn't work out the way that they had hoped. Did you have any follow-up? I think that Alderman Schoonmaker, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Did I see your hand go up? Alderman Schoonmaker, you're on mute.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to comment that, Alderman Waldron, I understand that concern, and it is a real concern. There's always going to be people that will look at opportunities and maybe not use them appropriately. But at the same time, in many instances, I guess I'll use my experience at the bank. We have found telework to be amazingly effective. Now, granted, there's a few people that it doesn't work well for, but overall, it's been very effective, and it's kept, well, maybe we wouldn't be able to operate as well because we'd have to cut staff in order to not have those risks. People are operating from home at high effective rates, and it also has allowed people that do have that sick kid who maybe just needs somebody to be around a little bit during the day to continue to work that day. So whereas they would have had to take the day off, now they can work from home and maybe put in 6 hours, maybe not 8, but they can put in a good amount of time and still be productive, and then just take a little bit of sick time. So I think it's worth exploring, and of course we have to keep an eye on it, and managers and HR will have to oversee it, but I definitely think it's worth exploring and can be a very flexible opportunity for us.
Alderman Went?
Thank you, Your Honor. And to echo that, I completely agree. I think that teleworking, I think the world has found that it can be very efficient and it can really work. I know, quite honestly, like my wife, she works a ton more now that she works from home than she ever worked when she went into the office. I mean, the amount of hours is a ton more. So I don't have any problem with that. To the point of abuse, that is a concern, and I think we can set this up in a way that those that use it properly should be rewarded, and that should be great. I think it makes for a better work environment, that you feel more committed to your place of work if they're flexible and work with you and family oriented and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, we should put things in place that if somebody abuses it, it's like I talk with my kids. Yeah, I'll give you enough rope to hang yourself. I mean, if you go out, do a great job, but if you abuse it, then you're in a lot of trouble. And so I think that that's just the way that we've got to approach this. I think it is something that is for the betterment of our community and for our employees. And I think ultimately it'll make us more efficient.
Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Let's return to item number 5, Walter D. Laud, change order, 19th Avenue, Joe Kuhlenbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me this time?
We can, thank you.
Okay, great. For this item, staff is seeking approval from the council to approve our change order number 1 on this project, and also final payment for this project. Walter D. Laud completed 19th Avenue reconstruction. During the construction, there were some variances we had to make with the storm sewer and sanitary sewer being too close or on top of each other. There was a basin that needed to be replaced, and some ADA upgrades that were also included in this change order. The change order total is $34,783.43. The entire project as bid was $728,060.96. So this gets us up into that, still below our budgeted amount during our CIP, but gets us up to that total amount. So staff is seeking approval for this change order and final payment to Walter D. Laud. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Waldron, a second by Alderman Burt. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Nguyen?
Sorry about that. Thank you. I'm in favor of this, but I just did want to mention, and I had talked with Joe about this before, we do have an ordinance, at least one ordinance that talks about change orders of anything that's over $20,000 actually needs to be pre-approved before the work's done. And we talked with Joe, and I think Joe had indicated that there may be a separate conflicting ordinance that allows up to a certain percentage. And so Joe said that he's going to look at it and come back with a recommendation to us on how to rectify those two amounts, because $20,000 for a $1 million project as a change order probably is not unreasonable in any way, shape, or form. So I just wanted to mention that so everyone here and the public knows that we are finding that a conflict in our ordinance.
Yeah, and that change for capital projects, it's a $50,000 or 10% change order that would need prior approval, and even that might be a little stretch sometimes. But yeah, there's definitely some opportunity for us to clean up some language, reconcile the ordinances so they mirror and look good. Yeah, and we'll bring that forward. But yeah, thanks for prefacing that, Alderman Went.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go into our work session, and we have representatives from GovHR remotely. We have Mark Peterson and Katie Rush, and then Marty Vonix. Did you want to tee this up?
Yes.
We're going to go into the council discussion and direction regarding GovHR efficiency study recommendations. So this was presented to us at length in the community a couple of weeks ago. So we've all had an opportunity to digest it. We've asked the representatives of GovHR to come back and give us kind of a guided tour of what the things are that we should be considering so that we can provide that direction to staff to move forward. So Marty.
I think you did a great job, Mayor, so.
Sorry, I kind of.
That's all right. I was going to say basically what you just said, so let's go with that.
All right, then we're settled. I'll turn it over to Katie or Mark, and we're going to take a break in about 10, 15 minutes, Katie, but I think that we could get a nice start on the building division part of it, or if you want to just kind of tee it up, or Mark, whoever's going to do that part of it.
Oh, Mayor, can you hear me okay? First of all, Mark Peterson here.
We can hear you well. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Why don't I kick it off just with some introductory comments. Thank you for having us back. We're delighted to join you again. We were requested to develop another kind of summary document, which was that, I assume that was distributed to the council, just another sort of summary in function by function of some of the more significant recommendations in our report, and as well as an indication of which of those recommendations could likely be implemented this next fiscal year, and which of those would likely take longer term to implement. In some cases, 2022, and in some cases, it would take multiple years. I assume you've received that document?
Yes, we did receive the document.
Thank you. So we can walk through that document or each of those sections if you'd like, and just summarize what is before you.
Yeah, what I think would be most effective, Mark, is if you could, if we could start with the building division and come back with some direction to staff about, how we're going to digest the recommendations in the study that you provided to us and how that's going to impact our activities moving forward. So yeah, if you can kind of step through the recommendations and how you suggest that we respond to these.
Sure. I'll, on this one, I'll defer to Katie since she did most of the heavy lifting on the building division. And Katie, if you can, just to walk them through some of the recommendations.
Katie, you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you so much for inviting us back to visit with you tonight and to provide you the opportunity to ask us questions. We'll do the best we can in terms of trying to assist you as you work through the document. As it relates to the building department for 2021, what we were suggesting is to realign that building division back towards the community development department. This is something that we feel would be more strategically compatible than where it's located presently within Public Works. This is something that is more typical in a community development department. It usually would include both the building and the planning functions as well as economic development. That would be the first bullet point. The second would be to make sure that that neighborhood improvement officer position is being responsive to the building division and under the supervision of Joe Kuhlenbeck or the community development director. The next bullet point would be to consider purchasing or consider actually looking at that environmental health inspector position, which you guys were discussing earlier this evening. This is a position, or the position responsibilities are something that most communities share, and the responsibilities are cross-cutting to every community that has restaurants, that have daycares, that have schools, massage parlors, tattoo parlors. All of those do require inspections and support. However, it is something that is an opportunity to actually consider doing some type of intergovernmental cooperation. Some communities allow the county to do that entire function. When they are displeased with those types of services, they have the opportunity to take that in-house and create that role and responsibility. It is also something that Moline could use as a cost center, as a profit center, perhaps. So you could actually expand the environmental health inspection services offered by Moline and offer those at the cost plus overhead to other communities. So it is something that would require some additional conversation with your neighbors as well as the county as to what approach might work best for all of you.
Katie, before we move on, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I feel like the first two items are kind of in a group that the council maybe could consider and give some direction on. So do you mind if we separate those? I feel like the environmental health inspector is going to be its own discussion, but I would entertain a motion at this time. Do we want to proceed with the recommendations of moving the building inspection and code enforcement functions over to community development, and then making sure that the neighborhood improvement officer reports out through that entity? Or is there another motion? I'm open to whatever. Alderman Went.
I'd like to make that motion. To I guess to adhere to the first two bullet points.
Second, Parker.
We had a second on the floor, Waldron. So we've got a motion by Alderman Went, a second by Alderman Waldron. Is there any discussion on this motion? Alderman Waldron has a comment.
Dirk, this question's probably for you on the second bullet point. Our past history was to have that in legal because they Brad closely worked with municipalities and all that stuff related to legal, and that's why it went there initially. You've been here now over a year. What is your take on that personally?
I would keep it in. It's
it's one thing when you have an in-house attorney that's here round the clock, but right now, it works through an outside attorney, not our firm, John Fox from Califf and Harper, works with Brad and Amy, and they do a superior job, I think, of enforcing that. I would leave that as it is, and I would keep it as is suggested at the economic development. That's the typical model for people. It is a handshake between them and Chris, for example, about the kinds of what are the pitfalls going to be for this development, what are the code enforcement issues ahead of us. And so having everybody focused on the same code provisions, interpreting them the same way and enforcing them, I wouldn't put it back under legal or under the corporate counsel. I would leave it as is with the outside assistance as we have it now with John and Amy providing that assistance. Amy comes under administration. She works under the direction of the clerk. I think that's working well.
Thank you, dear.
Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you. This has been something that I've been trying to work on for quite some time. This was one of the first things when talking with developers, people who invested in Moline for smaller projects or mid-sized projects, that this was one of their frustrations for a while was they would come to City Hall, get one answer, then they would go down to Public Works and get a different answer. And because those two areas were not working so closely together and not under the same director and everything, it tended to cause issues, confusion, and with some feeling that Moline was not as easy as it might otherwise be to work, invest, and to grow. And so I really think by doing it this way, there's the ability for those individuals that are making these decisions on this development, new buildings, expansions, that they work closely together and eliminate the miscommunication that had been happening so often before. So I highly recommend that we do this.
Is there any other discussion on this? Alderman Potter?
Alderman, are you referring basically to putting the building division or the inspection division back under community development? That's your major concern?
You're on mute, Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that was the thing that was happening that kept getting reported back to me by developers that they were getting told one thing in one building and told something different in another building.
Alderman Potter?
I agree with that assessment, although I do like the idea of leaving the neighborhood improvement officer and the system that's already in place. I think it's working well, I agree, and I think it's wise to keep that system going. So I'm supportive of moving the inspections department into community development, but I believe the neighborhood improvement officer in the present way we have this structured is working well.
Are there any other comments before we go to roll call? Roll call.
So Mayor, to clarify the motion, it was to move the
Well,
building
it's
division.
just, you can just use the two bullets.
I don't actually have that.
Oh, okay. We can provide it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Do you want me to read it, or are we okay?
No,
Does everybody,
my understanding
all
was.
of the council understand what the motion is? Everybody on the council understand? Anybody not know what the council? Okay.
Do you want us, because there are people that are watching this, do we want, because I don't think that it's.
Yeah, I'll just read. Okay, bullet number 1, realign the building division to fall under the oversight umbrella of the Community Development Department. The building inspection and code enforcement functions of this division are more compatible and complementary of the typical community development functions, including planning, housing, neighborhood services, and economic development, than it is with the functions that are traditionally associated with public works. Bullet number 2, which is also contained in the motion, shift the oversight and reporting responsibility for the current neighborhood improvement officer position to the building division. Is that your motion, Alderman Nguyen? Or who was it that made the motion? I'm sorry. Alderman Waldron.
I seconded.
When
Went and
Yes.
that was the motion. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So Alderman Potter?
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion to remove the neighborhood improvement officer change from that motion.
Is there a second for the amendment? The amendment dies for lack of second. Are there any other comments on the motion on the floor? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Nay.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
That motion carries. So sorry, Katie, to divert you, but now we're back over to environmental health inspector. Let's try to get through this before we take our break if we can. So did you, I think that you had kind of finished your comments on that, but maybe not, Katie. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that health inspection position?
No, I had completed my comments. So as I indicated, it is an opportunity for consideration of regionalization in some way, but that would have to be something that the different organizations would have to come to agreement on. Or alternatively, you could continue to do it with the county.
So I think that we want to provide some direction to staff on how the council feels about this and how we want to move forward. Alderman Waldron.
Your Honor, I would make a motion to fill the environmental health inspector position in-house and try to make it a cost center that we could provide services to the other communities.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Waldron, a second by Alderman Potter. Is there any discussion on this motion? Alderman Wint?
Just to gather a little bit of information on this, it was my understanding that there was in the recent past, the last couple of weeks or so, a meeting at least with Moline, Rock Island. I'm not sure if East Moline was involved with that, but I had talked with at least a couple other elected officials from Rock Island that had indicated that they were excited about the opportunity to collaborate with us, that their thoughts were that there probably wasn't not enough work for 3 full-time positions, but there was probably enough work for 2 full-time positions to cover the 3 communities, and they were excited about that in that it would give consistent inspection across the board. There may be some efficiencies, there may be some ways to better work collaboratively between communities for festivals and those sorts of things. And so I just wanted to see if we could get an update on what that meeting was like and what you guys took away from that meeting.
Marty?
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Went, yes, we've had at least several discussions, one with the mayors were involved, and then subsequently after that, not only, I think 5 city administrators and managers got together with the help of Vice State Commission to talk about shared services. We talked about health inspection, several other things. And so I had a discussion as recent as today with one of the communities who still is vitally interested in looking and pursuing this. So that discussion will continue after this. But I do agree that, I think we're going to be the ones that are able to provide that service best and who need it the most, because we have probably more restaurants than anybody. So.
Yeah, and my understanding, and that's reflected in your comments, Marty, that there are other communities that may be interested in joining our collaborative partnership. I don't know if the county is very excited about losing communities, but I think that it's worth a discussion because we're most interested in how best to serve the restaurants and at an effective price. Alderman Wint?
I guess this is then to Marty. What do you think would be a reasonable time frame that you would be able to come back with a recommendation on how that might be structured and a realistic understanding of what other communities would be on board? Not expecting, I's dotted, T's crossed, and the full agreement or MOU completely hammered out, but that we could get an idea of is this feasible, who's on board, and what in general would that look like?
I think near the end of the year, beginning of the new year probably is a reasonable time frame. Maybe even sooner. It just depends on how quickly they want to move and what their budget considerations are.
Marty, if we're thinking though that we're most likely to be the host of, whatever the central point of it, what would be our hesitation to put someone in place?
I don't think we should have any hesitation. I think we should put someone in
Okay,
place.
so your recommendation
Yes,
is
and I think
concurrent,
you'll see in our budget recommendations, that's
okay, with
that's
the
key.
motion,
Yep.
okay,
So what Alderman Waldron said is
yes, okay. Anybody else? Alderman Witt?
With that said, I'm going to support this motion to move forward, but I think embedded in it, we'd like to put some kind of time frame on staff to maybe get back to us by the first week of January to report on what the progress is and what this is going to look like.
noted.
Anybody else have a comment? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Wentz,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Do you mind if we go over a little bit from our break goal? Because I'd like to really get through this one if we could. Katie, can you do the next bullet item to consider the?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Certainly, and the next item is not a personnel issue per se. It is really more of a technological recommendation. Many communities have moved to online permitting, and the ability for residents as well as developers to do those submittals online. And we would suggest that you explore and purchase and implement such software. I believe the director of the building, Joe Kuhlenbeck, has had some research completed and might be poised to make a recommendation. I also think as a part of that, looking at how your processes work prior to them being incorporated into an online system would be helpful. So looking at how those systems work, what steps are there, if there's redundancies or areas where you can increase efficiencies.
Thank you. Is there a motion to consider by the council? Does anyone want to pursue that?
Your Honor.
Yes, Alderman Witt.
I'd like to move that we move forward with this recommendation with the caveat that we request that staff review our processes so that when we implement this program that it is streamlined accordingly.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Witt, a second by Alderman Moyer. Alderman Potter, did you have a comment?
I'm just, the next recommendation is, intergovernmental cooperation, and I think it expands on the discussions you're having beyond the health inspector, all the inspection staffs across the region. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to include this in those discussions, because I know that in the past, there was an attempt to unify the building codes and other things, and we've had some interesting history of that period of time, but I'd be interested in hearing how we could make that happen.
Yep.
So just so I understand, because I think that you're suggesting that perhaps the neighboring communities could get the same software? Is that what you're suggesting, or are you talking about something different?
I don't have any problem in doing this. I just don't know if it should be done in conjunction with the discussions that are going on with the other inspections departments in the area.
Sorry, Mary.
If I may, Alderman Wink, I think I like your motion, but I also would suggest that what we pursue in terms of an automated software be compatible with our pursuit of regional inspection services. So, I mean, we should tie that all in together so that it's very streamlined and moving everybody in the right direction, kind of going along with that, what I think what Alderman Potter's trying to say.
Anybody else? Alderman Witt? Sorry, I'll come back to you, Alderman Morgan.
I completely agree. I mean, I think that if we can get to the point, and this is something I brought up with actually the last two city administrators, that being able to submit and get permits online, one of the first conversations I had with a contractor, a roofing contractor, he's like, if we wind up having a job on a Saturday, we just do it. We don't get a permit because there's no way to get a permit if you wind up with a nice day, and said, I would absolutely get one if there was an online portal to be able to pull it and do it properly. And so I'm glad that we're finally getting to this stage to implement this. And doing it regionally and having the same thing where if you're going to Rock Island or to East Moline, that you're can pull the same permit and use the same software, I think would be advantageous for all of us.
Alderman Waldron?
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think this would be a wonderful thing, but I just want to know what the cost is.
Of course.
And obviously, potentially, that could be put on the expanded level list. I don't see it on there now, but if that's something that we're going to propose for 2021, I would think that would be a good item to put on there.
Thank you, Alderman Waldron. Alderman Parker?
I agree with 100%, and actually, Walderman stole my question. So, good job there, Michael.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, roll call.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Okay, Katie, one more.
Well, actually, you started upon it, and that is to pursue the regional and intergovernmental opportunities for providing those building services during high demand. If you have the same codes, if you have the same processes, it does help to clarify expectations. You are all, in terms of a region, very closely aligned. There's developers that work in one community that work in Moline. And so it might be advantageous for all of the communities as well as the development community to synthesize and provide some streamlined opportunities in terms of your codes and inspection services.
Thank you, Katie. Do we want to formalize the direction to staff on this one?
Sure, make a motion to give staff that direction.
Thank you. Thank you for that passion. Is there a second?
Second went.
We have a motion by Alderman Waldron and a second by Alderman Nguyen. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call, please. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but Alderman Nguyen and Alderman Parker have something to say. Alderman
Quick question for Katie. I know that there's a number of opportunities out there with intergovernmental cooperation. Do you know of any opportunities, or would it just be basically through bi-state or something to get grants or those sorts of things and assist communities like bringing Moline, Rock Island, and East Moline and Silvis and together to try to get us on the same page for building code and those. You had mentioned you had run into an issue where something got nixed because somebody wouldn't change their code on a sidewalk, and so. What are those resources, or do you know of any, or can you maybe find some and shoot them our way?
Certainly. I know that in the past, in a couple communities that I have worked with, they have regional foundations, like a community memorial foundation, or it's something that a foundation that oftentimes is supported by one of the larger hospitals in the area, look to support governmental improvements. And so that might be an area where there's some dollars available to assist and facilitate. They might not be able to purchase the software for you, but they might actually have the opportunity to help mediate and negotiate and become an arm or an assistant to the staff so that the staff does not get bogged down into the nitty-gritty details of an agreement. So yeah, I think there are some opportunities there. And I'd be happy to try to provide some support to Marty on that in terms of giving him some names.
Thank you. Alderman Parker, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I've always been in favor of sharing resources with our neighbors. My only concern is, and Marty, this is to you and whoever negotiates these deals, is that we make certain that it's not on the backs of the residents of Moline. You know, that we are passing any of these costs, and all of them, you know, fully loaded costs for employees, and then some on to our partners. I just want to be sure that the residents of Moline aren't paying for inspections or, you know, whatever it is we happen to be sharing with neighboring communities, aren't paying for those through their hard-earned and well-spent tax dollars.
Thank you. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Wentz.
Aye.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. I'd now like to call a brief recess. If we could do 4 or 5 minutes, please just stretch your legs and then return quickly. The time is, I'm going to go like this one, 7:16. So we'll try to reconvene at 7:20. We are returning back into our open session. Do we have everybody back online? Are they on? I don't have videos. Do we have Alderman Wentz and Alderman Parker?
Complicated.
Alderman Schoonmaker, are you with us? Alderman Wentz, Parker, Schoonmaker?
I'm betting they're cookies.
I know, I think they are. I'm just counting. Well, we have a quorum, so Alderman Wentz, Parker, Schoonmaker. There is Alderman Schoonmaker. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, Katie, we're turning it back over to you. We do have some people in the committee of the whole that are very interested in this particular discussion. I spoke to them and I asked if they had any comments for us. They didn't at this time, but they may have something that, you know, if they have a correction or some more information they think we need for our discussion, I invited them to come over and let us know. So we're now going to address the engineering division section of recommendations. Katie?
Thank you.
Katie, can I jump in for just a minute? Just a couple of introductory comments here.
Certainly.
First of all, the summary sheet that you have before you is not inclusive of all of the recommendations in each of the 4 areas that were included in the study report. However, these are the items that we felt in consultation with Carol and Marty rose to the level of a council policy discussion. There are other recommendations that are probably a little more minor in nature and probably more directed at management than the ones before you this evening. I just wanted to clarify that. And as we get into engineering division, I'd just like to share with you this. The 2 of us probably spent as much or more time on this division than the other 3 combined, because it's a very complex and complicated division, of kind of a multi-headed dragon with lots of moving parts. And my colleague Katie did the lion's share of the heavy lifting, bless her. I was involved to a fair amount in this one as well, but there's a lot here, and some of the things that we're recommending are hard to quantify. It's a little bit like comparing apples and oranges in some case, but we feel good about the analysis that we prepared, and we understand that some of the larger recommendations in this section are not going to be something you can implement immediately. They will take maybe a period of years to implement, and also probably lend themselves to a slower transition to see how some of these changes are working, and you have the ability to pull back or adjust if they're not working as well as you had hoped. So with that little preamble, I'll let Katie again walk through these recommendations that we outlined here, and we'll stand ready to respond to any questions you have.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. We did have quite a bit of time with the engineering group and in terms of trying to collect information from the other individual municipalities that are noted in the report. Many times we were finding that material on their budget or in their on their website, as well as conversations. So the first bullet point is to fill the city engineer position. This position is vacant presently. It's being, the duties and responsibilities are being completed by the civil engineer as well as Joe Kuhlenbeck. They're kind of divvying up that responsibility. If this position is completely filled, it would oversee and help to implement the recommendations that we have outlined. And primarily under 2021, it's mentioned under 2021 as a bullet point to transition the basic service model for engineering from the in-house traditional model that we would say that you have today to either a design or a project management model. And I think it's important that if you proceed with hiring the civil engineer, it's clear what his function and roles and responsibilities are going to be. If you are going to hire this individual to oversee an in-house design situation as you have today, you're looking for one set of qualifications and skills. If you are going to hire that individual to move to a more contract-driven, private consulting basis model where that individual is supervising contracts and contractors, it's a different type of skill set. So it's important for you to consider that. It's also important to recognize that capital improvement projects are many times multiple year and are in concept, preliminary concept perspectives and stages multiple years in advance of their actually being put on the docket to actually be executed. So it is something that will take some consideration and some strategy. Would you like me to stop there, Mayor?
Yeah, I think that we need to give staff direction on whether or not to proceed with hiring this position.
Your Honor, haven't we already voted 2
Did we
weeks
already
ago?
vote that? Oh, never mind. Good. We're good. No, Katie, we already voted to move forward. Thank you for letting me out.
When is that position going to be posted, or has it already been posted?
It's not yet posted. We're working on the final description.
Is that the same with the Community Economic Development Director as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Katie, moving on. We already have approved this.
Okay, very good. The next item is to consider shifting the duties and responsibilities of the existing property management coordinator to another position within the engineering division, community development or legal department. Right now, that position is, I guess it's classified as vacant, and Chris Mathias is doing that position, the land development manager and economic development all at one time. So again, it would be something that we feel that could be absorbed, the property management responsibilities, which is like legal descriptions, securing right of way, critical responsibilities that in terms of a critical path, in terms of project completion. But many communities use the model where those responsibilities are charged to the engineer or engineers who are designing that work. So it would be either the civil engineer or your city engineer who would be coordinating those responsibilities.
So, Katie, you said, what what did you say? Who was going to observe it? I heard you say civil engineer, but I don't think you said construction manager, and it reads construction manager.
Yes, I'm sorry. It could be the civil engineer or the construction manager.
Okay. So is there any guidance for staff
I
on
would
this?
like to make a motion to direct staff to assign the duties of the property manager to the property manager to the construction manager.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Alderman Potter and a second by Alderman Waldron to transition those responsibilities to the construction manager position. Am I saying that right, Alderman Potter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Marty, did you have a comment?
Yes, myself, JD, Laura Clower, and Chris Mathias met about this topic today, and we have a plan for implementation. And I think it would be split among several different positions, depending upon what the task at hand might be.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure you know that, rather than everything going to the construction manager, so.
Okay, then I'll amend my motion to concur with the staff recommendation that the property manager functions be divided among the present engineering staff as recommended.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so let's do a quick vote on the amendment, just to clean it up. So we have an amendment by Alderman Potter, a second by Alderman Waldron. Could we just take a vote on the amendment to bring it in or not? Roll call, please.
Sorry. Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. So now we're considering the amended motion on the floor, which really distributes the responsibilities to multiple other positions per staff's decision. Is there any discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. Next bullet item, David?
Your Honor,
Oh, Alderman Waldron has a comment first.
just so I'm got it right in my head, we've had 43 openings. Technically now, this is the very first one that we should said that should be absorbed into the organization. So that really, at this point, takes us down to 42, correct? Thank you.
All right, Katie. Next.
Okay, thank you. The next bullet point is again something in terms of realignment. It's the land development manager, and that is to put that individual back into, or I should say not back into, but into the community development department. We feel that that would be more effective and efficient. That individual supports planning and development in many ways, and we felt it would be important to have that strategic alignment.
Let me just jump in here, Katie, if I could. I believe that position was in community development, and it was shifted over to Public Works, and we're a little bit hazy on why that occurred.
Right.
Be that as it may, we feel it probably is a better fit in community development with other disciplines that seem to be more strategically compatible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the only reason we shifted that is because Chris Mathias was doing both
think so, yeah.
jobs, but
Could be.
Katie is correct.
That's possible.
Management has always been.
That is correct. That could be possible.
Yeah, that would be logical, yes.
So do you want to support that, Alderman Waldron?
I don't think we need to do anything. It's in land, it's in planning and community development already, position is.
Oh, okay. So it was just like a temporary switch that was never documented.
Well, the position is listed under Public Works. That's why it's listed as one of the authorized positions under Public Works. That's why we're suggesting that it be moved back to community development. I don't know if you need to do that through council action. Maybe that's just an administrative move, but it's currently listed as a Public Works position.
So
I would like to move just to give staff clear direction to do it. I think staff has the ability that they can flip-flop these people back and forth, but let's give clear direction. We want it back over.
So we have a motion by Alderman Nguyen. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't catch who made that second.
Parker.
Alderman Parker made the second. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll, Alderman Burke.
Sorry, I do have a question for you, Marty. Being that we are switching it over and it's a managerial position, the intent is not for that land development position, manager position, to come in and manage the community development positions
Right,
that we
he's
currently
not
have.
managing the
He
community
is
development.
not going to manage.
No, he's gonna help coordinate, activity, but, because he has the most experience down there among those people within, all the different sections, but he's not the interim director or anything, no.
Okay, so he is, I'm sorry, did you tell me that he has the most experience?
Yeah, and on all the different aspects of planning, zoning, economic development, all the functions that they do, probably except for the, what KJ does.
Okay, I just want to be clear that we aren't putting that in a managerial position and that they're all equal
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
The last bullet point in this area is to evaluate the traffic cost center expenditure trends. It was pointed out in the report that this cost center, at least when we were looking at the data, has had a trend of having cost overruns of $20,000 to $30,000 on an annual basis. And just for accuracy purposes and for the council's knowledge, it was recommended that you look at those spending patterns and consider increasing the budget to reflect those.
Carol, did you do anything with that, or is it just carried forward from what it was last year? Do you recall?
I mean, we reviewed it now this year, but we can certainly keep our eye on it. Right now, this year, I don't know if it's different with COVID, but they're within budget this year. So, but we will, I'll look back at the history. I'm not as familiar with that, but we'll keep our eye on it.
Thank you. Alderman Potter?
I'm not sure if we've included the traffic signal division in the CIP to the level of, and the scrutiny that some of the other things get. And I think that might be part of the problem, in that we have a lot of, we have more than the average for a community our size of traffic signals in the community, and many of them are aging. And I think part of the reason we get cost overruns is that, we're not, keeping a close eye on when one of them is beginning to fail or whatever, and that's what causes those budget overruns. I don't, I think it's a valid point. I think it's a good idea. It would help for budgeting. It probably would require some specialized or some extensive investigation of the entire system.
Well, could we maybe look at making a motion just to direct staff's attention to this, to make sure that we do understand and have a clear budgeting policy, that aligns with actuals and what's going to happen?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Alderman Waldron.
Second.
We have a second by Alderman Moyer. It's just direction to staff to investigate this particular line item. Is there any discussion on it? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Your Honor.
Yes,
Just
Alderman
one
Waldron.
comment to follow up on Alderman Potter's comments. I think you will find there are a lot of accidents and knockdowns of traffic boxes, traffic signals, and masks. We have so many intersections. We experience a lot of that. And we try to collect through insurance agencies for these people that hit it, but a lot of times these people take off, or you're not able to collect very easily from these. So the collection is a long-term thing to get the money back, but the knockdowns happen quickly, and you have to invest the money in to get the intersection back up. So you can see a lot of up and downs in traffic.
Thank you.
Let me just add anecdotally, if I could, just as an aside comment. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you have a lot of traffic signals that you make, as well as
107
municipally owned streetlights. And you have 2 people that do all that work. You're getting quite good value, I would say, out of that crew. And they are scrambling. In interviewing them, they're eager and hard workers, but they're scrambling to keep up. And a comment that we did here is there are a number of old signal control systems out there that, you just you limp along with them, but they are, subject to failure over time. And Alderman Waldron, you're also right, is that they're sitting in the right of way, right at the edge of the road, and they're frequently hit by cars. So even though we see some budget pressure there, I think Katie and I both agree you're getting really good value out of your in-house staff as it relates to signal maintenance. In fact, they probably will need to be supplemented a little bit by maybe some third parties during certain real busy times. But all in all, I think you're getting pretty good bang for the buck there.
I also think that, in terms of your asset management, which all of these street lights and signals are, they're your assets. It might be helpful for you to pursue with the Public Works Department what is their average age? What is their condition? Is there something that is contributing to these budget overruns in addition to the knockdowns? Is there something that is perhaps at the root of it? And so that, I think it would be helpful in terms of your ongoing management that you look into it.
Thank you, Katie. Let's move on to the recommendations for likely implementation that are beyond 2021.
So for beyond 2021, I know that we talked a little bit in our presentation about the different service models. And right now you have design staff and you have survey staff, as well as a host of engineering technicians that are doing quality control during the construction season. There are different models, and each community has to decide which model works best for them. In terms of the ability to control cost and be flexible with ramping up or reducing the amount of expenses in terms of engineering dollars, moving to a engineering design system that does not have the in-house aspect as significantly, it might be beneficial for Moline. And so we suggested that you either look to a discipline-based model, so the community would have the opportunity to do a RFQ process, select engineers for perhaps a discipline, so transportation, stormwater, sanitary. So you would think about it from that vantage point, or there are communities that approach design and construction inspection services from a project-based system. And you do that right now, you do that with your federal programs or the more complicated levy type situations. So that in a nutshell is the recommendation is consider moving to a different model. But again, whether or not there's significant cost savings, you won't know that until you're actually in the system for a while. And if you, for example, go with a discipline-based model, you would want to contract with an engineering firm so that they could create some institutional knowledge for 3 to 5 years, for example. And in that case, you would also be able to negotiate those prices and the costs for those services. And I'll leave it at that. Answer any questions.
Thank you. Alderman Wint.
So this actually seems like there's two things, and I don't know if that's true or if other communities do this. There seems to be the engineering design, which is a certain set of people, and then there is the construction management or project management group. Are there some communities that keep one in-house and one out of house, or should those be considered as two separate approaches or two different divisions that could have alternative answers?
Yes, I mean, for example, you could do your design in-house, then you could bid it, but as you do today, but you would also then have to contract with an engineering firm for the construction oversight. So many cases, it's a little bit more turnkey when you are doing by a project basis, that you would bid the project with the engineering firm, and that would include surveying as well as construction oversight.
Alderman.
Mike, add a community that I managed for 20 years. We used a blended approach, and we did probably 90% of design externally, but we probably did 70 to 80% of construction, inspection, and management internally. And that was just the approach that community took. Most of the survey work was done externally. We just found that it was cheaper and easier to do that externally, but a lot of the inspection and management was done internally. That's just one example of a blended system. We did a little bit, and I think that's kind of what we're recommending here as well, a little bit of a blended approach, meaning there's going to be some in-house engineering needs that will have to be taken or can easily be handled in-house, smaller kinds of things, maintenance activities, but we're suggesting that maybe for larger, more significant projects, CIP projects, that you look to more external forces to do that design work, and in some cases management, instead of using in-house labor.
Thank you, Mark. Alderman Parker.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to speak with one of the owners of a local construction company recently, and he warned us as we're going through this process, his concern was that if we have the inspection piece done externally, that it can really slow down a project. And he would suggest that we keep that piece internal. And Mark, that kind of sounds like what you were doing down in your previous location there. I don't know much about the construction process or anything. I'm just passing along information that this person shared with me. And otherwise, if you're in the middle of a thing, you got people sitting around for hours or maybe days waiting for an inspection to take place before they can move forward with the next piece. So that's all I want to add.
I got similar feedback. There's a lot of community interest in this particular area of discussion, and I think that what we're talking about. Those aren't our customers; those are our partners. But it would be important for us to have kind of an established standard of how quickly are we going to respond when there's an issue in the field during a construction project. How quickly are we going to respond with our inspections? How quickly are we going to respond when there's construction that's waiting for plan approval? So those kinds of standards, I think that we need to determine what is appropriate and best, and a balance of cost and effectiveness, and then kind of build up the services. How do we best achieve those consistently? Because the feedback I had gotten is there had been some inconsistency in the way that we had provided that feedback that they need to be working on their job. Alderman Potter.
Yes, I'm sure everybody got to see the email from the engineering staff, and actually the portion which reflects inspections and management of it was probably the less cost effective, if you will, in terms of actual dollars, and it was the actual engineering services that, according to their calculations, and being engineers, I'm willing to believe that I think they're probably pretty close, would save us enormous amounts of money annually in the way that we design things. Beyond that, I think we're already using a blended approach. We have, in-house engineers for a significant number of projects, We have a long history of a civil engineer in-house providing work in the water and sewer division. We have civil engineers and a city engineer who did a lot of the CIP road projects, if you will, or whatever. And then, you know, those things that they don't have the expertise for, we were already subbing out to local engineering firms. I guess from my standpoint is I don't see the value, and especially in light of the calculations that we were provided, why we would want to change the model that we have. It seems to be working pretty well.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Alderman Waldron?
I would agree with Alderman Potter on that. I think really what we need to make a decision, do we stay the traditional model that we have, or do we go to another one, and how do we transition to another one? So I think that's what the direction or the policy we have to give staff. Are we going to stick with the traditional, what we have, or are we going to go to a different blended model? Even though I agree with Alderman Potter, we do have a blended model already.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen?
Thank you, Your Honor. To Alderman Potter's point about the email that we had just received with the numbers in it, I had a chance to at least go back and forth with Laura on her email, and I'm just waiting for another response back from her. I think that there may have been some, for instance, there's $265,000 that is in the CIP that to cover 3 techs that it's my understanding was added into the CIP rather than actually being paid out of that division, because a number of years ago, Scott Hinton wanted 3 more techs and couldn't fit it within his budget, so he just added $265,000 to the CIP to cover it. And so, I'm not sure if that was included in these calculations. And so, I don't disagree that we need to look at these numbers, but we need to look at these numbers. And I know Laura is I'm sure she is reviewing that and trying to get the numbers exactly correct. And honestly, to your point, it may actually show that the inspection is even less efficient. So I think that that's one thing. The other thing is Alderman Moyer and I had an opportunity to have some discussions with Laura and Joe regarding the CIP, and I've had conversations with Laura about this before, is our design, most municipalities and those sorts of things, they design one year and build the following year. And we have historically waited till the budget is actually done, do all the engineering from November, December through March, and then let the project. And that is one of the reasons why over the last 5 years, there's approximately $7, $10, $12 million worth of MFT that had been budgeted, but then actually didn't get spent because for whatever reason, the projects got pushed. And so I think what I would be in favor of is figuring out a way for us to get a year ahead. I had asked Laura at some point to, and I think she said that maybe by next Monday they'd be able to do it, is to provide a white paper that shows how can we get a year ahead so that we've got projects on the shelf. So when grants become available, and some of them say it already has to be engineered, we have those. I mean, right now we only have basically one project that is 100% engineered, and we've got like 2 other projects that are very small that are maybe 80% engineered, and that's it. We don't have anything else. And so we as a community have to do better than that, and whether that is a more of a blended where we use some outsource to get ahead, because Laura had indicated that it probably would be at least 3 years under our current model for us to get to that spot. So we need to get there sooner than 3 years from now. And so I think we really need to look at how do we get there, at least to get ahead for the engineering, and then the discussion on whether you do all of it outsource or some of it in source or blended is maybe a different question that we need to answer.
Alderman Waldron, did you want to make a comment?
I think Alderman Went makes some good points, but there are some other points that need to be considered. Part of the problem with the advancement of the CIP program and getting it approved and getting done is us. The year we're in right now is a classic example. Joe Kuhlenbeck has been trying to get us to adopt the CIP for a while. Scott Hinton tried to get us at one time to get it adopted CIP in June. And he would come to us in May and June, start getting us warmed up, get it approved so they could go and design it. Right now, we have not even given the staff go ahead to do a CIP project, not one. So a lot of this is on us. The other misfact that I just heard is that we didn't add those 3 techs in arbitrarily because we couldn't afford it somewhere else. The utility tax started. And when the utility tax started, we wanted to do more work in the capital improvement program. We didn't have enough staff to design and inspect those projects. So Scott Hinton at the time said, we will fund those 3 tech positions out of the utility tax. If that ever went away or got reduced, those positions would go away. But it wasn't for a lack of moving around. It was because the utility tax started.
So have they been in there for 5 years? Is that how long the building?
However long utility tax has been going.
Okay, thank you. So I invited Laura in case there was some information that she felt that we needed to have for the discussion. And Laura has approached the podium. I'd like to turn it over to her.
I think maybe Alderman Waldron answered my question. I just wanted to speak about the $265,000 that's in the CIP.
Okay.
That does fund 3 technicians. I do believe that those technicians are in the budget under the general fund as well, and that's split out between water and sewer.
I'd have to look, they might be shared, it might be
Right.
split.
Between those
Split.
3, but it's not only paid out of the CIP. Those positions aren't only paid out of the CIP. They're just shown as a line item in the CIP.
Thank you, Laura.
Sure that's
Thank you. Are there any other comments or really, I think that we should move this forward. Are we going to give staff direction on transitioning to something different? Do we need additional information in order to provide direction? Where's the council at right now? Alderman Nguyen?
I'd like to table the vote on this until next Tuesday, because I think that maybe we'll be able to get some additional information between now and then. Laura can provide the white paper on what it's going to take for us to get ahead in engineering, and maybe we get some more clarification on costs between now and then, because this will affect kind of our budgeting for sure. So I moved to table until next Tuesday on this particular topic.
I don't think there was a motion on the floor.
I don't think there was a motion on the floor.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, he's just suggesting to direct staff to come back next week. I mean, he's using table, but we're not tabling a motion. So is there a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second.
We have a second by Alderman Moyer. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries, so we'll do it again. But I think that we're good with GovHR. I don't think we need additional guidance from GovHR. Do you agree, council? So we're kind of, you got us out of the nest, so we'll carry on with that part of it. Can you do the last bullet there?
Certainly, the last bullet point is to continue to expand and use your GIS technology. There are different opportunities, in particular, if you're going to continue to have the engineering techs, which even in our recommendation, we recommended you keep at least 2, that those individuals be outfitted with the appropriate technology so that they have the ability when they are in the field to do the as-built, do the GPS coordinates that are presently not jotted down, taken, maybe put into a phone, and then when they get back to the office, they're having to transcribe that material. So I think it would be helpful if they had additional technology for them to be more efficient in the field.
Do we have a motion? Or
I'll make the motion.
you have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we do provide improved technology for the engineering technicians to allow them to enter as built-in GPS data in the field, but also want to add in that laptops for those technicians that have been requested in the past but haven't so because we didn't have it in the budget.
Is there a second? We have a second. We have a motion by Alderman Berg, a second by Alderman Nguyen. Is there any discussion on that motion? Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, this may be something, I had the conversation with Carol. In the IT, I think we may be holding a little bit more reserve than meets our policy, so that may be a good opportunity for this, and we'll talk about that when we get into the budget stuff, but that may be a good place to look for that.
Alderman Parker?
I guess I just would like to understand, and maybe it's either JD or Marty or a combination of the two. Why don't we have these people outfitted with the necessary tools that they need? I don't remember anything coming to us other than, we buy survey equipment, every now and then, but I can't remember a request coming to us and being turned down. Is there a reason these haven't been purchased until the point in time we hired GovHR?
I guess my response to that is I've not had any requests since I've been here for any kind of technology of the type that Katie describes. I'm sensing that her recommendation is that we can enhance our ability with additional technology. I think they have good technology. I just think that we could do better. So I think that we need to take a close look at what that technology is, work with GovHR, work with JD and the Public Works, find out if indeed there's technology that could enhance their work and make them more effective and efficient.
Well, and I got the impression that it hadn't made it to the council floor in budget. So that was the impression I got, that staff knew that it had been considered but had never made it to the council floor in the budget proposals.
I don't think it's in this year's budget.
Yeah, it wasn't requested this year.
It wasn't, okay, so I think that what we're doing is we're directing staff to get it in the budget for our consideration, whether it's an alternative or a part of the proposal and something else goes. Alderman Berg, did you have a comment?
A question, thank you, Mayor, is that a question that we could propose to JD to find out why this has never been brought to us? I guess I'm not understanding exactly, I guess what Alderman Parker said is that how long have these technicians been requesting the laptops and they haven't been given the laptops to do their job, I guess? I'm not.
I think they're doing their job. It's just a matter of either writing something down or putting it in.
Yeah, we did the same transition with Brad Hellman this year.
Yeah.
He didn't have a laptop in the field. He's got a laptop in the field. He hadn't had that before, and I think he feels more productive. It's more efficient. It gives him more flexibility in getting things done. I think this is that same opportunity.
And whether it be, and maybe amend my motion, whether it be a laptop or iPads, whatever the technicians or whatever, JD or Laura, whatever they see fit that they need to do their job adequately, efficiently is I think that they need to do.
Can I add just a little clarification to our recommendation? I don't think there's any suggestion that anybody was negligent. I think Marty's right. We think you have an opportunity to leverage your GIS data, and you have a really robust GIS database there. And I think it's a matter of leveraging that more effectively. It's not devices, iPads and laptops. It's also applications, how that data is applied in the field. And we think there's lots of opportunities. I wouldn't suggest that anybody was negligent or dropped the ball. It's just we see so many opportunities to use that GIS data to enhance productivity. And with respect to application or technology, there's lots of technology needs in the organization. And to your staff's credit, and maybe this is a bad thing, they're mindful of the limited funds. We've had, and nobody, Frank, Katie can nobody cried to us about lack of technology. Nobody said, we're not getting what we need. There are opportunities for technologies that are out there, and sometimes your staff says, right now, it's not a good time to ask. We're tight. And I appreciate that perspective. That sort of is part of under the IT section, we talked about this overall sort of technology assessment of the organization. What do you have and where you're going, and begin to identify strategic needs and figure out how to fund them and do it systematically, as opposed to waiting for somebody in the department to raise their hand and say, I need a new laptop. So again, I just want to make it clear, I don't think anybody screwed up or they dropped the ball. I think we see an opportunity to leverage your GIS and make everybody, particularly in engineering and public works, more effective.
I think we're at a place that we could make a vote on this unless somebody has some bit of information or needs some more information to make a decision. I just want to move us forward this evening. Is there anything that's urgent? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg? Aye. 8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. Let's move into the Human Resources Division and try to get this part done.
I'll outline these if I may, Mayor. The first recommendation, and you may have already started this, I'm not sure, but to consolidate the citywide payroll functions into the finance department. Right now, it's a bifurcated process. You've got HR doing some of the work, finance doing some of the work, and it's created, we believe, some inefficiencies by consolidating that in the finance department, which we think is the most appropriate home for that. We think there's some efficiencies to be gained, as well as to sort of free up some staff time in the HR department that can be, that time then can be deployed for other activities within the department. And I'm not sure you can ask Carol or Marty if that process has already begun to transition or not. I know you talked about it.
No, we have not transitioned.
Okay. I know you discussed it.
Yes, we did.
Is there any interest on the council floor to make that shift? Alderman Waldron.
I understand the consolidation of the finance functions for payroll, and I understand that this position does a lot of that. But that's not all that this position does. This position is the main interviewer for the city, the main hirer of the city, who hires the vast bulk of employees. So while we're only talking about the limited functions for finance, this doesn't explain at all what her other functions are going to do or what's going to happen to them. So I'm reluctant to change anything without further detail.
So are you saying that because of the other responsibilities of the particular person that's doing payroll, that you wouldn't want to shift it over? Are you thinking the concept of shifting the payrolls over, but how do you restructure the responsibilities of it?
How do you restructure what's left of her duties, and is there enough to keep her employed, so to speak, by doing the hiring functions of her jobs, or is it going to be absorbed by somebody else, or what's going to happen? I don't think there's enough detail there yet for us to make a determination.
So with that question, is there any information, did you have any ideas about what that position would look like if this transition happened, Marty and Katie?
Or Allison would be a good.
I think the expectation, you're talking about the HR generalist. We think with some other possible changes within that department, any gaps in her work duties will be adequately filled by shifting some responsibilities around. So we feel that that will allow that position to maybe absorb some of the current duties of the benefits coordinator, as well as maybe some duties of the risk manager, but mostly the benefits coordinator, and those would be consistent with a couple of the other recommendations we're going to discuss with that department.
So I don't hear a motion on the floor. Do we want to dismiss this recommendation to move payroll to finance? Alderman Went?
I think I'm on the same page that Alderman Waldron is on. I think that it makes sense for that consolidation, but maybe this is something that we put off until, again, next Tuesday and ask staff to give us some information in the meantime of what that would look like, because from my standpoint, I think that there makes sense of that portion of the job to move over, but how does the rest of it look once we've made that change and asked staff to give us a little bit more clarification next Tuesday.
So let's do you need a motion on that, Marty, or can you just take that?
We'll take care of it.
And we'll talk about the position in its entirety instead of, just parceling out part of it. How about the next item? More fully.
Okay, the next item deals with your risk management position. As you may recall, in 2019, I believe, you transitioned your insurance coverage for workers' comp and general liability over to a cooperative program, IPMG. I think they're out of St. Charles, Illinois. It's a statewide that consists of a variety of public entities, I think 60 or so, including the city of Moline. And Moline, up until 2019, when this occurred, you were conventionally insured through, I think, Travelers or maybe Safety National or both. And the move was made to basically save money. And these cooperatives, where you're pooling not only your risk, but you're also pooling your buying power, can actually be pretty effective in lowering your premium costs. And it sounds like from staff's perspective, that's what you experience. When you join these pools, typically they provide a variety of value-added services. In addition to providing insurance coverage, they will come in and provide a number of risk management services for the organization, including employee training, employee loss prevention programs, accident investigation, a variety of things that many of those, the city has not availed themselves of those services, preferring to keep those sort of in-house and under the careful control and watch of the HR manager, which is a legitimate, approach to take. And also, it was emphasized to us during our interviews that the HR department preferred to be the sort of the face of the insurance company to employees, so they don't have to go to call an 800 number or deal with somebody with IPMG. They'd rather respond to any concerns or inquiries directly to the employees. And that's a legitimate philosophy. However, it does come with a cost. And services that you're currently acquiring through IPMG, you're choosing not to use. We would recommend, as part of this item, is to accept those services through IPMG, which many communities do. And that doesn't mean that would eliminate all of the duties and activities of the risk management specialist, but it would eliminate a substantial amount of the duties and responsibilities by shifting those over to IPMG. So we recommend that you avail yourselves of those services that you're already purchasing, and then reduce the reliance on the in-house risk management specialist, knowing that her talents, which candidly are quite substantial and vast, could maybe be redirected to some other useful activities within the organization.
Thank you. Any direction, Alderman Waldron?
Similar to the last one, the devil's in the details. I'd like to hear from Marty and staff and Allison about how they would reorganize that to make it effective. So I'm not against it per se, but I would like to hear how it's worked, especially in light of in legal. Isn't there a position open in legal that's not filled? Vicki Felger's old position?
Well,
if this bullet point talks about maybe this could still work in conjunction with the legal services, that may be an opportunity there.
So it is true that we didn't replace Vicki, But that decision was made fairly early on, comparatively. When Lisa was here, they had talked about Vicky's position. Without the two in-house attorneys, we did a number of those things just directly, the writing of ordinances, the things. I, in fact, hired Vicky as a consultant just in case we needed to. She was excellent at finding things and all the rest. But Amy's got that skill set, so we haven't, just the outsourcing, we haven't had a need where, I've given a few projects to Vicky, but by and large, we've been fine having had the position reduced.
This bullet point talks about the other duties of this risk specialist that could be incorporated or work closely with legal. What's your thoughts there?
That's in fact what happens now, though, is, she works closely. It depends on your risk structure. So you have a large self-insured retention for example, workers' comp. And our workers' comp lawyers work closely with Annette and Allison on those. And you've heard me say here before, we've achieved the team has achieved some remarkable savings. A couple $100,000 worth of savings off of what the claims are reserved at. So that system's worked well. On the other hand, where you're insured for other kinds of claims, not workers' comp, we don't do that defense work. That gets assigned to the insurance carrier. They pick the defense counsel, and then they work through Annette and Allison's department to get whatever it is, the documents, to get the witnesses lined up, to do those kinds of things. So the hand in glove really is with Annette on the workers' comp side, because you're essentially managing that risk exposure in-house with an outside law firm. So that, I think, is what the bullet point might be referring to, is how closely we work together there. There's less for risk managers to do on the outside, claims about whatever it is, property damage, police, that's handled by the defense counsel, and that's just part of your insurance program.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Alderman Potter?
The other comment I want to make in regard to this is, I think we're relatively new with IPMG. I think we've only been there a few years, if I'm not.
Correct.
Is that, and I guess part of the information is that where we intend to remain? If that, if in fact that is where we are, then we could take advantage of this if it's a good program, but, it's not like we have a long history there.
So is Allison on the call? I'm thinking it was a 3-year agreement. Is that right, Allison?
It'll actually be on next week's agenda to renew with them for another year.
Oh, is it annual? Is it only?
No, it was let's see, it's an annual renewal. Last year, Mayor, you had requested we look at another pool and compare them to this other pool, and so, but we'd ended up renewing with IPMG. So 2019 and 2020, we've been with them.
Okay. And is your recommendation going to be continue on with them?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out.
Is your recommendation going to be to continue on with them?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Just from the employee standpoint, I see a confidence of use and an ease of use, that even though we may change carriers from time to time, there's always that contact at City Hall that really makes a huge difference, especially with young families and people with an awful lot of questions. And with the transition to different places to save money, I think they lose something. There's an unknown there that's probably going to cause a lot of stress and issues separate from what they would have with someone at City Hall. I just think that there's a confidence amongst the employees when they can go to City Hall and have their questions answered or send an email without trying to access a third party that maybe don't have the same level of concern that they would get here at City Hall.
I'm a little confused. Is this for like health insurance questions, or is this workers' comp and other liability issues?
What we're talking about now, Mayor, is workers' comp and general liability, like trip and falls.
I think it's a little bit different.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think we understand. Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah, so this workers' comp and these, we're already paying for these correct? I mean, there's no additional cost.
It's part of the program cost. If you want the services, they will provide them.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to understand to the point that Alderman Williams said, but has been said about this, is that soft point here is the concern for somebody with a trip and fall or a workers' comp that we've got concern that they'll have to deal with this third party. Is that our big reservation?
No,
I think that was when we interviewed staff. It was a philosophy that staff, the HR department, preferred to be the first line and the primary contact with employees on workers' comp cases, particularly in this case, or other work-related accidents. And that's a fine philosophy. I'm not criticizing that. It just comes with a cost.
So I mean, I think that this is kind of an odd discussion because, I mean, we have these individual employees that we know and are very effective, but there's, I think, other ways for them to be effective if we can take some parts of it off their plate and have some expertise from outside. You know, how else can you invest that individual in improving the operations of the city? Alderman Wint?
Yeah, I guess I'll move that we use the risk management specialist for the workers' comp, the trip and falls. But obviously, we've already made commitments that where staff is going to say, I mean, if we can't find other things for them to do, they can assist with these third-party connections and contact them. But I think our staff will be able to better utilize their time. But we should be utilizing these resources that we're already paying for.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that, but I have a question.
We have a second by Alderman Parker. Motion by Alderman Wint, second by Alderman Parker. Your question, Alderman Parker?
Yeah, so how many contacts per week, month, year are we talking about that this person, you know, we're losing a lot of sweat over, that they're actually handling? How many individual, not cases, but contacts with individuals to help them through this process? Do we have that data?
I may have it somewhere, Alderman Parker. I don't recall, and I don't have my notes right in front of me, but it runs the gamut of currently the person in this position is coordinating, and in some cases delivering both required and voluntary employee training. Police department, fire department, others, they're either, this person's either arranging for the training, and in some cases, this person is delivering the training. They're also doing a lot of accident investigation, both for workers' comp as well as general liability. They're obviously, employees come to them with questions about this. They're responding to questions. I will tell you this, my sense of it's a busy position. And I will add, there's a couple other things the person in this position is doing that is not at all related to risk management, some additional services, staffing an employee committee, or I can't remember exactly, my notes aren't in front of me. But it's you know, I believe it's a busy position as it currently stands. But I also believe that there are a number of services that the insurance provider can offer that staff is not using.
So Alderman Parker, did you have another comment?
Yeah, just kind of a follow-up. I'd be interested to know what sort of time we're going to be able to realize for this position if we do move forward with you know, using it, peeling it off, and using the insurance, whatever the name of the insurance company is. Yeah, okay, IPMG. What sort of efficiency is that going to provide this individual, where they could deliver more other things to the city as opposed to a redundancy of service that the insurance company's doing? Do we have a sense for that?
I don't, Alderman Parker. I can't tell you if it's 50% or 75%. I think it's a pretty substantial a part of that person's job, but it doesn't replace everything they're currently doing. And it's probably going to vary from day to day, week to week, is my guess. But I don't have a hour amount or a percentage to give you.
But it's a significant percentage, you believe, and so it probably
an amount.
Okay, so probably this person then could be doing some other things for the city, as opposed to. So I guess I'm in favor of this, moving this forward because we're already paying for it. Let's utilize this valuable asset in another way.
Is there any other comments or questions before we go to vote? Roll call, please.
Williams,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Nay.
Berg,
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
That motion carries. I'm moving on to the next bullet item. I'd like to at least get through our HR area before we take another break.
This next item applies, the same bullet point is also under IT, and this has to do with, I think it's an issue of span and control. Currently, the IT manager and the HR manager report to the city administrator. What we are recommending is that you create an administrative services director that can oversee what we refer to as the 3 primary internal service departments, that being IT, HR, and finance. This is a fairly common model in municipalities, so the chief executive officer is not tasked with having to oversee those 3 very busy divisions. And as we cite here as an alternative, you could simply designate the finance director to provide day-to-day oversight and management of those 2 functions, so that the IT department and the HR department, working through their respective supervisors, would ultimately report to either an administrative service director or finance director. And it's really purely a span and control issue, and we think it makes sense, and we think it will help both of those departments receive maybe better and more frequent direction, as well as it will enhance, we believe, the accountability of those departments as well.
Is there any discussion or questions? Alderman Parker?
So don't we still have out there the budgeted for or approved to have an assistant city administrator? And wouldn't these functions fall underneath that person?
It could. It certainly could, if you had that position filled.
Obviously, we've not been able to do that to this point. Right. But yeah, to me, I think, that's where those positions should lie, as opposed to with another director who's, I'm looking at my 8-inch bid budget book, and obviously she's got her hands full with tasks as well.
Marty, did you have a comment?
I'd like to address Alderman Parker's concern. I think there's a lot of synergy between finance and human resources. Frankly, it's human resources is the meat on the bone of the city. I mean, that's who we are. We're a bunch of people providing services. And so a very close coordination between the human resources director and the finance director, I think, are really important. And this would just help solidify that. I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, that you and Allison talk probably daily, maybe during budget time for sure, but there's a lot of coordination and sharing of information from those 2 departments. So I think it's a natural, and same with IT, I think there's a natural bridge between finance and IT as well.
Thank you. So any other comments? Alderman Berg?
Is this, so then, this assistant finance director would be that position? Is that what you're thinking? Or you're saying another director on top of that one?
No, what we're saying is Carol would be the director of finance and administrative services, and IT and HR would report to her.
Okay.
So what's the council's
So
thoughts?
we don't have to create a new position is what I'm saying.
Oh, perfect. Then I'll make the motion that we have the finance director oversee IT and HR. Is that what is as recommended by Gov HR?
Second.
So we have a motion by Alderman Berg and a second by Alderman Moyer on the table. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Waldron?
When you give extra duties to somebody like that, typically that dictates a increase in responsibility and an increase in pay, correct?
Typically, yes.
So not unlike the assistant finance director, which we've had no money for, and we have the 42 empty positions that we're not sure what we're going to do, we keep adding new positions that aren't funded technically, and we have 42 positions that are sitting open, they're not filled. I cannot support, haven't supported, will not support adding new positions and duties when we have 42 open positions to still figure out.
Any other comments or questions? Alderman Potter?
Forgot my question.
We can come back to you. Any other discussion? Alderman Parker?
So yeah, I have based on Marty's last comment, if we're a city of people and human resources identifies that those people, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable that the director or the manager, whatever that title is of human resources, is a step away from the leader of our city, the administrative leader of our city. I think that's if that's truly what we are, is we're an organization of people. I think that we should elevate that person to be able to have direct contact and access and feedback from the city administrator, or that's just how I feel. I think we're kind of demeaning or pushing that position backwards from sitting at the big person table.
Thank you. Alderman Potter?
I remember my question now. The comment I wanted to make is that I guess along with the comments of Alderman Parker, the Human Resources Department deals with a lot of sensitive information, a lot of real important things, and I'm just a little uncomfortable with that person not reporting directly to the top in the same respect, I guess. And I understand how Mark lays this out, and I'm guessing if that person, we've had discussions about a assistant city administrator. I personally believe there's not enough work in a city this size for an administrator and assistant administrator without additional duties. And I'm not trying to give you more work, Carol, but I'm thinking, potentially a assistant city administrator could be the community economic development coordinator, made this point before, or the finance director. And if that was the case, then I might be more supportive of the HR function reporting to someone besides the administrator.
I feel like if we were to pursue this option that I don't want to startle you, Marty, but I think it kind of negates the assistant city administrator, that really then we've got a consolidation with a segregation of a pretty significant portion of the administration responsibilities. But so I don't really see a need for them both. I mean, I think I can see some synergy there. It makes sense because you got the payroll, you have all of that financial interaction, and the employees are a pretty significant part of the budget, that particular resource. So it makes sense to me. I'm not picking up the same argument with IT. Is that correct? So people would be comfortable with the IT moving, but maybe some discomfort with HR moving? No. Anybody else got anything before we go to roll call? Alderman Witt?
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. I guess maybe, I feel the angst about, okay, we've got these two positions, they're similar, we've got already one that's on the books, and now we got this other one. I have a feeling if we wound up filling one of them, we probably wouldn't wind up filling the other one. So maybe we just give direction to staff that, come back with your recommendation on which direction you want to go, but I don't think that we're in the position of hiring both. To the mayor's point about IT and who they report to, again, maybe the staff can come back on what their recommendation is, because I don't think that we've got a whole lot of heartburn that would report maybe to finance or something like that. But I'm not sure if we need both the assistant manager and the administrative. I'm hesitant at this stage, again, with what Alderman Waldron said, that we got lots of stuff to figure out and fill. So I'm okay with waiting to figure out which one and how we fill those.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do we want to take a vote on that motion? Roll call, please. So we're voting.
Can you repeat the motion?
Yeah.
Please.
It's basically this bullet item. Consider the creation of the Administrative Services Director position overseeing the three major administrative internal service functions of finance, human resources, and information technology. So that's it. That's the motion. Roll call.
Alderman Williams,
Nay.
Parker,
Nay.
Went,
Nay.
Potter,
Nay.
Moyer,
Nay.
Schoonmaker,
Nay.
Waldron,
Nay.
Berg.
Nay.
That motion, say I had to go with it. That's not very often. That people that make the motion.
That's why you leave me for last, right?
Do we, but I'm kind of picking up a vibe that we are giving staff direction. Does somebody want to clarify that so staff doesn't wander away going, what just happened?
So you would like a motion to have staff come back with a recommendation as to whether we have an administrative service coordinator or a assistant city manager, and how they would prefer to have this?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking that we need to clarify, what does that tier look like? What does that very highest level of administration look like, and how does it function? I think we need some clarification on that. I don't know, Mark and Katie, when you made this recommendation that failed resoundingly, were you thinking that there's also going to be a assistant city administrator in addition to this role?
Well, we certainly thought that was a possibility. We knew that was a budgeted position that hadn't been filled, and that would certainly, I think these duties would align very well with an assistant city administrator. And that, again, is a relatively common model. Some communities do embed that role in the finance department. So that's not uncommon either. We think either could work. And again, let me just kind of step back for a minute and just, in general, as we approach this project, we were looking for ways to create efficiency and generally to save some money. Although not all of our recommendations result in money savings, some are going to require the investment of money. But so generally speaking, most of our personnel recommendations are involving reducing staff as opposed to adding. This is a little bit different, but we think it fit in particular with the fact that we recommended elimination of the IT manager position, knowing that there would maybe need to be a little more direction there than has been needed in the past. And I think also we were aware that in the past, the HR manager reported to the legal department. So there was kind of a gap between the city administrator and the HR manager in the not too distant past. And we were sort of talking, maybe we return to that model to relieve some of the day-to-day oversight duties of the administrator, knowing that person is pulled in umpteen different directions. So that's why we felt that in the name of really efficiency and improved span and control and accountability, it was worth either investing that responsibility in a new position or putting it with either finance or a future assistant city administrator.
Thank you. So, maybe we can just roll that into our budget discussions of what does that highest tier of administration look like? What's the what's the best structure for us right now, and well, how do the options weigh against each other regarding cost? Is that okay? Is that okay, council, if we just push it to them for that? Okay, the last item in HR. Keith?
Okay, last item in HR, and again, this is somewhat similar to the bullet point above that we talked about risk management services, and this is something that would likely not be implemented immediately, but we are recommending that you consider acquiring your employee health and dental insurance coverage as you do workers' comp and liability through some sort of a pooled cooperative. And there are a number of them out there. One that both Katie and I are very familiar with is the IPBC, which is a statewide pool, and they provide primarily for municipal governments these kinds of insurance coverages at very, very competitive rates. Again, they're not-for-profit organizations that are using the collective purchasing power of a large number of municipalities. They go out en masse and use that bulk purchasing power, and they also spread the risk among all of the members. In addition to that, they provide, like IPMG does, a variety of value-added services in employee services. They handle a lot of claim. Most of them have 800 numbers or web portals where employees can call in from home and get coverage questions answered, or they can change beneficiaries. They can do a variety of things through or change dependents. Do a variety of things online without having to call HR to have that done by, or have their handheld by an HR staff member. So we think it's not only convenient for employees, but it will, again, take a significant amount of the benefits coordinator duties away and place those with the insurance provider. Very similar to what we just talked about with the risk manager. And again, as we went into this, we were looking at staffing levels, and we looked at your HR department, and when we benchmark it with other communities, it's quite heavy. There's a chart in the report that says the staffing level in Moline for HR is 1.29 staff members per 100 employees. The average of all the other benchmark communities was 0.76. Now, every community is different, and I will tell you this, your HR staff is very dedicated and they're very busy. They work hard, and I think they're all wonderful. But if you benchmark, you're well over what most other communities provide in terms of HR staff, given the size of organization. So we're looking at ways, how have other communities managed to reduce or hold down their HR staff? And this is one of the ways that many of those communities do it, through shifting some of the employee services to a third party, in this case an insurance provider. So we're recommending that that's something you investigate. That's probably going to take some time to do. First of all, you already have coverage purchased through other providers. That'll take time to transition out, and then you'll want to look at various pool providers and get quotes and evaluate their quality. So that'll probably take a year or more to see that through, but we feel it's certainly worth investigating.
Is the council interested in pursuing this as an option? Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to investigate that from 2021 and beyond, however long it takes.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Waldron, a second by Alderman Berg. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. I feel like we're fading a little bit, but I
Yeah.
would really like to get through information technology because we still need to go over the budget. So if we could, get through this part of it. Is it Mark or Kate?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and handle this. I'll try to move quickly. The first item, during the latter stages of our process,
Mark,
we got
I
the
don't
message
think,
that.
we already decided to do the manager.
Okay, you've already taken care of that.
That's
Okay.
done, yeah, so. Moving on.
So there's a few items where we're actually now recommending that you spend some money. And one is, we think it's vital that you undertake a comprehensive network system security review. We recommend that you engage a third party for that with special expertise in system security. I have another client in Missouri that had a security breach in January. They are just now getting the organization back to normal. It has been devastating. And so, and this is not to call out your network manager. I think he is very capable, but it merits an outside look just to make sure you're doing everything you can to keep the network secure. And we recommend that you do that every few years.
Is there any interest in this? Council?
Your Honor.
Alderman Witt?
Yeah, I think cyber attack and cybersecurity is a extremely important thing. Now, I don't know if we've got the exact cost, but I think that it is something we should give direction to our staff to come back on what that looks like, what the costs are. As I said earlier, it looks like we've got some reserves in IT that are over and above our policy, and so I'd like to direct staff to come back with a plan and costs associated with that.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Witt, a second by Alderman Berg. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Potter?
Just quickly, if there's anything we're presently doing that could throw that in there so we know what we're doing right now in terms of managing that risk.
I'm sorry, are you asking
If the department is already doing something along those lines.
Yeah, I think they're doing something. Marty, do you want to respond, or do you want?
Yeah, the department does a really good job of many of these things already, but I don't think it hurts to take a look at it. I don't think, well, I can let David speak for himself.
Yeah, so we already currently have a contract that we just signed a 3-year re-upped in March with McGladrey. They have a product called IT Vision. It's a piece of hardware on our network that monitors all of our servers for irregularities in the event logs, the drive space, things like that. As far as an external intrusion detection report, yeah.
Is there someone that needs to mute their thing? Sounds like a panting dog.
Yeah, it does.
Sorry.
They're filing their nails.
Mark Peterson, do you have a dog with you?
No. If you hear whinnying, then I'm in trouble.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just a weird background noise. It was a little distracting. And so, Mark, do you have an understanding of that we have a 3-year agreement for a software supplement? Is that, or is it hardware?
It's a network. It's an internal networking, a network monitoring service that McGladrey does for us. They then, whenever they find anything, they immediately open a ticket on their system and alert us. As far as an outside intrusion detection scan, I know those have been done in the past. I would have to research and see what our last one was.
So I think it's not so much that it's not good what we're doing, but just making sure that we have the very most cutting edge, I think is probably what the council's trying to achieve. So it may be prudent to, look at it and say, is this enough? If we invested more, what else can we get?
I know just about 1.5 years ago is when we last upgraded our firewall, that our main barrier between us and the outside internet. I can check with, we have support through that. It's Marco is who helped us install and configure it. I can check with their network engineer and see if that kind of detection was done before or after that was replaced.
Would it be an option too to use some type of like consultant to kind of see what other communities are doing instead of you having to do like individual patches? I think that maybe was what the intent of the recommendation was, to just have someone that does this all the time and has seen horrible things happen in other places.
Yes, exactly, Mayor. To use a company that particularly even works with local governments, but take a very holistic approach to system security. And it sounds like, again, your staff is doing a great job. And I don't think it's a terribly expensive undertaking for what we're talking about, but look at all of your protocols to make sure that you're doing everything reasonable to maintain the security of your system. And again, and they may respond that you're doing great and there's no need for any changes. Hallelujah, that hopefully makes you sleep better. But I think it's worth an independent review just to make sure.
Alderman Witt.
Sorry, my thoughts aren't that we're not doing it now, but I liken it to maybe, somebody has LifeLock, but then you have a consultant or somebody goes, that's great that you got LifeLock, but we also suggest that you have a shredder for all the things that you do. And on your phone, you have a VPN when you're out doing these things. And, so it's an outside person that analyzes these things all the time for different communities and comes in and says, yep, you checked these 7 boxes, but have you thought about these other 8 boxes are ways that you could protect yourself more? That's, I guess, what I envision, and I think that that's maybe what GovHR was trying to portray or suggest in this. Yeah. That's what my motion is.
Is there any further discussion? Alderman Parker?
We have coverage against cyber attacks, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So if we do this this audit or this independent consultant, could that possibly impact our premiums?
We're kind of in the middle of doing that right now. Our premiums have been affected because of a question about two-factor authentication from outside, which is something we're actually working on right now to fix. That's just from the webmail portion. I guess Allison would have to speak to how in-depth their analysis was. I don't think it was a true intrusion detection. It was a questionnaire that we filled out for them, but it did affect.
So so David's correct. The multi-factor authentication that we're implementing helped us maintain better coverage and positively impacted premium. So anything I think we can do for cybersecurity would be helpful, not only for the premiums, but also to maintain coverage. If we're not being proactive, then the insurance companies are not going to insure us for as much. So anything we can do, I think, in that regard is helpful.
Any other discussion before we go to vote? Alderman Schoonmaker? Oh, sorry, yeah.
Just contacting the insurance company before we get bids on this, they may have a specific, if you do this, then we would do this. So just please make them part of that discussion.
Great suggestion.
Let's go to roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, ready?
Yeah, just briefly, a 5-year plan.
Yeah, we really talked about this. It speaks for itself. This is could be a significant undertaking, but we think it's money well spent and will help to help all of you prioritize future technology investments so you're getting the most bang for the buck, and that you're identifying these technology needs. Even if you can't fund them today, hopefully you can put a plan in place to take care of some of these issues over the next few years.
So when I read this, I was thinking, well, that's kind of silly because technology will be different 5 years out. So why would you bother? But I think I could support if we were dedicating a certain investment in technology every year with a plan of how it moves around to different departments or something like that. Is that what you were thinking, or were you going to identify when we were going to?
Yeah, technology's changing, but 5 years is not an unreasonable planning period for technology. But to be able to identify needs, first of all, identify what they are, look at what systems you're currently using, how can things be streamlined as it is, and where is some investment going to improve productivity, efficiency, and customer service. And then, obviously you have to identify funding sources for those things.
Marty, did you want to add something?
Yes, I agree with this, but I also would add that this master plan should look at data as well and information. So it's not just about technology, but it's how do we use just the ton of data that we're producing here at the city and how it relates and talks to each other. So it's got to be part of that as well. If we can tackle that, we can become even more efficient and more effective in providing services to our residents.
Mark, would you envision our IT manager leading this effort?
Absolutely. I think, it's a tall order. I think using an external vendor for this activity would be important, but your IT staff would be integrally involved and would oversee that effort. I think it's probably too much to ask your IT staff to take this on. They're busy as is, but they would certainly oversee the initiative.
Thank you. Anybody want to make a motion on this one? Or do we want to pass? You can make a motion not to do it as well. Anyone? I would entertain a motion to, all right, we're going to take a pass on this one. I think the council has given me the feedback that they will not want to support pursuing it. The next item?
Next is just simply a suggestion that with just a 3-person IT department, again, we had not planned to recommend elimination of the manager position until the opportunity presented itself. So we understand that puts more pressure on your existing staff, very capable group, but we do recommend that you look to use private service providers from time to time to supplement the efforts of your current staff. I don't know that you need to take action on that, but it's just a reality that, for the size and complexity of your organization, 3 people in IT is not a lot, and they're busy as is. So you just need to recognize you probably will need some third-party assistance from time to time.
Got it. Thank you. Marty?
And we already do. Yeah.
Great.
And then the next one you've already dealt with.
Okay.
And then that leads to, kind of ties into what we talked about earlier, GIS. You have a great GIS program that's still emerging. There's tons of opportunity with that data. It ties into what Marty talked about, is how to gather and how to use your data. But we recommend that you maybe lead the charge in developing a regional GIS consortium. Those are done throughout the state and the country where you have a large metropolitan area and you're all sort of combining your data. You're making sure that data is standardized, and then you can share that data, which I think has regional significance as well as value to the city of Moline. This is something that won't happen right away, but we think you're poised to be a leader in developing that sort of regional consortium.
Yeah, I would agree that we're very strong in that area. So you're suggesting like the consortium or the collaboration for the health inspector, like we were just talking about, we do another similar collaboration for
Health
GIS?
inspector, yeah, right.
Yes.
Okay, Alderman Witt?
I'd like to move that we direct staff to start those conversations and come back to us with a recommendation on how to move forward.
Is there a second to that motion?
Sure.
Second. I have a second by Alderman Waldron. So we have a motion by Alderman Witt, a second by Alderman Waldron. Is there any discussion on this item?
If I could quickly make a point, one of the individuals we spoke with is in this area, Chicagoland area, does a very large municipal government consortium for GIS, and he indicated his willingness to assist and facilitate those conversations and explore the opportunity, and he would do that at no charge.
Oh, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Shoemaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Your Honor,
Yes.
going kind of lukewarm, and I think we're all kind of hitting the wall right now, but can anybody speak to why it's not a good idea to ask staff just to show us what a proposal like that would look like?
Alderman Moyer has a reason.
Well,
go ahead, Alderman Moyer.
We've talked about this before, and I think, a lot of cities have chief information officers. They look for ways to share data. I don't know that we're at a spot right now to consider moving that direction or not. But
we'll come back to the plan.
We can come. I made a note. I'd like to come back to that, but I'd like to think more about it and maybe have some more conversations before making a specific recommendation. So that's why I took a pass.
So maybe what we do is ask to revisit this in 6 months or a year. Alderman Moyer, you and I have talked about, sometimes we talk about things and then we're like, oh, we'll talk about that later, and then they just disappear forever. What is your recommendation on, kind of maybe a timeline to revisit this or think about it?
6 months.
6 months to, this would be something for 2022, I think. We had a pretty extensive conversation about this already, and I think it's not something I don't think we're ready to do right now.
Yeah, we got a lot to do.
We've had a lot of conversations about how different departments don't necessarily always share information very well. You might have to call 3 different departments to come to some, complete answer. And this was something that would solve it, that,
So maybe have them come back with, or a rediscussion the first meeting of June?
Yeah.
Marty?
If I could suggest that maybe over the course of the next 6 months, that staff provides you with a series of information pieces, even presentations, so you learn more about what this could entail. And then after 6 months, we can say, okay, yeah, let's do a master plan, let's not do a master plan. Because there's a lot of stuff out there right now as it relates to cities and municipalities, the things we could do, everything from just how we share data to cameras, and Chief Galt and I have talked a lot about fibers and optics and controlling traffic, ties into our traffic control systems. There's just a ton of ways we can use data to become more effective, more efficient, and more cost effective. So I'd like to explore that over the next year, and we'll come back in 6 months and give kind of a presentation, see where we're at, give some education.
We'll be looking for something at least by June. How's that? And then as soon as we'll be looking for something by June. So if we don't see it by June, that'll be a concern. But if you can get it to us before then, so good. All right, Mark and Katie, I want to thank you so much for your investment with our team and thinking through our options and helping guide us through this discussion. I think it's been helpful. I think we've got some good plans. Do you have any closing remarks before we let you go?
Good luck. Thank you. You accomplished a lot tonight. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Very good. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mark and Katie. I'd like to call a brief recess for us. If we have 4 or 5 minutes, just go freshen up, and please come right back if you wouldn't mind. And we're going to step through an introduction of the budget. We are going to call the meeting to order. The time is 9:09. And then now we're going to move into the next portion of our work session, which is presentation and review of proposed 2021 operating budget. Before we go into that, though, I do want to draw your attention to a couple of issues. And that is, as Carol presented to us, I think it was the last meeting that you explained that we were we were close with our expenditures and revenue adjustments lining up, but there was 118,000 that we had more in revenues, or depending on how you looked at it, we had more in revenues than we had expected when we were planning our expenditure cuts. October has come in strong in revenues, and so now that gap has grown. Now we have a $300,000 gap. I have a couple of recommendations that I like for the council to consider. One is we drew money back from the parks and we drew money back from the library. What I'd like to recommend to council is to position them for coming into 2021 instead of, releasing the floodgates when we get into the 2021 budget, to give them an opportunity to invest some money to get them positioned for that work in 2021. So I'd like to make a recommendation that we consider allocating $100,000 to the park board for their work here in the remaining balance of the year. And then in light of what has just happened with our school system shutting down, I would like to make the recommendation to council that they consider allocating $200,000 to the library board so that they can do the work that they need to do, especially in consideration of our young students may be needing some more support, some more services, whether it be online or alternative hours to help facilitate that work so that they can come alongside those students to help them be successful. So those are the recommendations. We are clean. We'll still come in with a balanced budget if we make these decisions this evening. So I'd be entertaining a motion.
I'll motion that.
Second.
I have a motion by Alderman Moyer. I have a second by Alderman Berg. Is there any discussion on this item?
This is for this
Yeah, it's
fiscal year?
Current year,
Yes,
yes.
2020. Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I am absolutely in favor of this. When we talked about our revenues, that they're higher than what our COVID budget revenues would be, but still lower than what they had otherwise. But because of the adjustments we made, we're in a much better position than we are. I would like to just add, I think that the projected reserves for the library has increased from what originally was budgeted about $90,000 for their reserves, and now it has grown by about $190,000 more than that, so it's at $280,000. So their reserves that they're going to end this year on their current pace is about $190,000 more than it would have what they originally had budgeted for 2020. And so I'd encourage them, and obviously we don't have any say on how they spend their money, but we should give it to them and really encourage expanded hours, especially with the schools going 100% virtual now. I was super happy when they opened up for some hours on Saturdays, but it'd be great for them to open up on Saturdays and Sundays, especially right now, so that I know they could, and maybe expand the curbside drop-off to the weekends as well.
Yeah, and just so that everybody knows, so we have that committee where we come alongside the school district and try to think of different ways to partner. And there was a great conversation that was maybe associated with someone here. But anyway, so Erin Waldron-Smith was the spokesperson from the school side, and she had some great ideas about, outreach into the school system. It's going to be a little bit more difficult than it would have been last week because the schools are closed, but doing more work connecting up the libraries. And then our library folks had some great ideas too. Sam and I participated in a meeting with a couple of library board representatives, and they had some neat ideas about structuring computer access in a way that's attractive to the young people, like setting up more convenient, more attractive pods of computer work, and doing some preparation of reference materials for that work, just trying to supplement what they maybe need right now to be successful in their education. So that's it. Anybody else have anything to say? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker,
Aye.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. Sorry for diverting. Carol, if you would walk us through our book. And then what I want to do, because it is late and we are tired, I'm sure that the people that have started to dig into their books, you have questions. I'd like to give Carol an opportunity to kind of step us through it holistically. And then there are a couple things that she wants to accomplish tonight. Carol, can you list them off? Was it?
I wanted to talk about the property tax levy rates, as well as ongoing funding, potentially for the library and parks as we move into 21.
Okay, so if that could be our goal for this evening, and then
I'm sorry, Your Honor. The second part of that, she kind of faded away.
Carol, can you move your microphone a little bit closer because you're quite soft-spoken.
Oops. Yes, I can. Can you hear me now?
No.
Nope. Just my.
They said yes.
Shout out.
Yes.
Okay, hello.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm hoping to do is if we could at least address the levy rates, the property tax levy rates tonight, as well as consideration of ongoing, some additional funding for parks and library going forward, because all of the other major funds of the city are balanced and funded. So.
All right, walk us through it. Thank you.
We have a very brief PowerPoint of just a couple slides, if you'd like.
Yep, so
Marty,
I'll
or do you
start
want me
out.
to? Yep.
Balanced budget, 97.6 net of all funds, slight decrease in property taxes, no increase in utility tax fees, funds all existing city services, and all major funds meet or exceed the city's fund balance policy, which you all passed very recently, with the exception of parks and library. So we've got conservative assumptions. With diminished revenue continues due to COVID-19, it mirrors 2020. Minimal growth in our operating budgets, thanks to the staff and their hard work. Opportunity to restructure the management team, which we've talked a lot about in the past, but we're going to get into here, and then realign several departments and functions, which again, we talked about today. With improved economic conditions, we can actually, over time, hopefully that'll occur, make additional changes to the positive. This is where the money comes from. We'll send the slides to everybody. We'll put it on the website. You can take a look at that, and you can see the difference, but I don't want to go through that since we want to keep going. And here's where the money goes. All right? So we have a review of the history. This is from the book now, and Carol will go through this, a review of history of charts. Should we skip the charts?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'll just do.
We'll get to the fund equity statements, which I think are pretty important at this point. But take a look at the charts when you have a chance. They're pretty informative, and Carol's and her staff has done a good job putting them together.
Yep.
So
the one chart that I would like to, and you can go back one slide if you wouldn't mind, Marty, is just the very first one under tab 2, page 3. This is the one that addresses all the property tax levies. It's page 3 and 4. This is one of the things that, as we adopt the budget, that the council does need to address is the levy rate. And I'll go through it very briefly. We talked about on 10/24 that there was interest on fully funding the police and fire pensions at 100% of the actuarial value. I have incorporated that into the recommendation here that I'm going to go through. If you take a look at that page number 2, I just wanted to tell you where the values were at. Can everyone hear me okay?
Are you okay, remote? Okay. Yep, they're
Okay,
good.
if everybody can hear. Currently, for 2020, if you look at the first yellow column, you'll see that currently we are receiving $15,903,000 in property taxes. We have growth of about $11,279,000. If you compare the first green column to the second green column, you'll see that change of about $11 million. That's 1.4% overall growth, and then you can see the different categories. And if we were to keep our levy rate the same, which is currently at $2.55, that would generate $16,135,000, or about a $231,000 increase in taxes. As we went through the budget, and I know that Alderman Wendt had also kind of gone around the horn, that heard that there was potentially interest in instead kind of keeping the levy rate the same or reduced. And so we have brought forward a budget that is balanced with actually reducing the property taxes of $100,000 lower than the current year. That is the last blue column, and that reduces our overall levy rate to $2.01,313. And I'm going to go through the impact on that on residential and commercial just very, very briefly. But if you take a look at the blue chart underneath there, you'll see how we've applied the levy rates then is for fire to, at 100% fully funded on the actuarial recommendation, is to get $6.4 million of the levy. It's about a $493,000 increase. For police, to fund it at $5.6 million for a $720,000 increase. I did up the library levy just a tiny bit, $52,000. And then the way we structured the parks levy, we had talked early on, and it happened to us here during this last COVID 2020 year, to allow the council a little more flexibility on that levy was to levy it under the general fund, but to assign the taxes to the parks. So they would actually be levied and they'd go directly into the parks fund. But if we ever had another crazy year like we did this year, where we ended up and had to pull some of the revenue and things back that way, that would give us some flexibility with that levy rate.
Your Honor.
Yeah, Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, and I appreciate, Carol, you and I have talked about quite a bit of this up to this point, and the 2% increase on the library levy, I was obviously a huge proponent of that. The only thing that I'd like to see, and maybe I'd like to make this motion, that we direct you to the remaining portion, that rather than it go to the general and then assign to the parks, that it just goes straight to the parks. That I think that I feel comfortable with that amount going directly to the parks. They control it. While we do have some other backfilling clearly that we will be doing with the parks, that full amount I'd like to move to direct staff that it just go directly to parks and not pass through the general fund.
Second.
Oh, we have a motion by Mike Wendt and a second by Alderman Waldron. Sorry, I should have said Alderman Wendt. And the amounts you're okay with, the allocation?
Yeah, I mean, the parks gets everything that's left, which is that, I guess, $1,078,042, yep.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion regarding that motion? Dirk?
Yes, that would be a change in procedure, though, because that is not how we applied the interpretation of the levy this year. You would not have been able to do the things you did this year with those park funds if you did it the way you're suggesting now. You're changing the procedure from what you've levied in years past. If you didn't interpret that as being general fund dollars, then you couldn't have done what we had to do during COVID this year. A levy cannot be altered. You cannot go get those levy dollars back from the library. You cannot go get them back from the pension. We did get money back from the parks because it was levied through the general fund because of the wiggle in the language. All Carol and I are going to do is make that language clearer. What Alderman Wendt is proposing is a change in the procedure that dedicates those funds irrevocably to parks, and no matter what happens, you cannot go get those dollars back from parks unless they give you a loan. That's why I want you to use the general fund and target them to parks. You can be accountable for it in every way, but God forbid something happens, you cannot touch them if you do a direct levy to parks.
Is there any other comments or questions? Alderman Schoonmaker.
Alderman Wendt, what was your thinking or purpose of reassigning that?
Well, I think, and I appreciate Dirk's comment. I mean, I think even on this paper, you can kind of see that it's the way it's laid out is different. And I understand that it's just being done maybe to make it more clear that that's how we've historically always done it. But I think that the amount obviously has decreased just because our pension portion has increased so much. The leftover that is going to parks has shrunk because there's just not anything left in the pie. And I feel comfortable with saying, this is yours, Parks. It's dedicated to you, and I trust you to spend it. And so I'm okay with that approach to it.
Are there any other comments? We have a motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Nay.
Parker,
Nay.
Wentz,
Aye.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Nay.
Schoonmaker,
Nay.
Waldron,
Aye.
Berg. Nay. 3 ayes, 5 nays.
That motion does not pass. Do you want to continue on, Carol, or are we at a point that we're at a decision point about the amounts?
I think we're at a decision point. I'm so sorry. I need clarity on what we just voted on
Nothing.
for my,
Yeah, we didn't, he made a motion to
change
modify
it?
what you had proposed.
oh, to modify, so it would be to keep it as is written.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes.
If we turn then to page, let me just get it. I'm going to skip a lot of these pages. There's all sorts of charts you can look upon.
Excuse
You
me.
will then see the break.
Alderman Waldron?
Are we then agreeing to this amount of the levy? Are you assuming that I agree to the
No,
lowering 100,000?
No.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I would like you to turn to page 9, and then that clearly shows the makeup of the new levy that is reflected from that first page we just went over. And here's where you'll see the fire pension rate of the levy is going to 81 cents, police pension 71 cents. Is everyone following? The parks levy then would be at a 0, and the general fund assigned to parks is 13.7, and the library is 33.9 for a total of $2.01313.
Thank you. Are you looking for some decision now?
Yes, if we'd like to take a motion, is that right, Dirk? The main thing is that we are not increasing property taxes at the 5% because that would actually require a public hearing. But if we have a motion to set the levy rate as is, that would be nice because we can go ahead and get publication things in order.
You'll still,
What?
Your Honor.
SSAs.
One moment, please.
we'll still have to bring forward ordinances for you to pass.
Yes.
But we need to know what numbers to put in the ordinances.
Okay. Thank you. Alderman Went?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we set our levy at $15,803,922.
And are you ratifying the breakout, or are you just setting the levy? And then we're going to do subsequent?
Well, the change I wanted to make was failed, so I as allocated here by staff.
Thank you.
Second, Parker.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Went. We now have a second by Alderman Parker. Is there any discussion on what's presented here? Alderman Waldron.
Reference the levy. This question goes to when you talk about you balance the budget in all areas except for library and parks, which we need to discuss. To balance the budget in all the other areas, what has happened to the 30-something positions that are vacant?
We will get to that when we kind of hit the general fund, but in the general fund, we've actually set aside a contingency for $750,000.
Saw that. That isn't going to get us 30-something positions, though.
No, those are the portion that's in the general fund. And then each of the utilities also have positions that are vacant. There are ample reserves in those, the cash provided, the net cash reserves that we will discuss as well. There's way more than the fund balance on those to backfill those. The two funds that are of concern are parks and library. They do have some fund balances now, but in order to hire positions back, I would like to see ongoing revenue stream so that if we hired somebody, we know next year that that revenue stream would still be there in order to fund it.
Alderman Waldron.
That's why I cannot agree with lowering the levy by 100,000. I can agree to leave the levy at 2020 numbers, but not lowering it 100,000. Thank you, Your Honor.
Are you making an amendment or not?
No, I would just vote down the recommendation.
Okay. Alderman Potter.
I will make that a motion to increase it by $100,000 to the levy, same levy as last year.
So we have an amendment on the floor by Alderman Potter. We have a second for that amendment by Alderman Waldron. Is there any discussion? And what it is just shifting the levy $100,000.
Your Honor.
Alderman Witt.
Thank you, Your Honor. The reason I'm not in favor of this is because I believe, and we don't know this for certain yet, but we did have a increase in EAV that is projected by the county, but we all know that historically that projection is reduced by appeals and exemptions. And this year, by all indications, we are going to have a historic number of appeals. And because of that, my concern is if we don't make an adjustment to the levy with a slight downward amount, that once those appeals go through, we're actually going to wind up with a tax rate increase. And so what that results is, I know it's difficult math, but what that's going to result in is if those appeals come in, which I think is conservative, that they'll come in at least $12 million, that if we keep the levy at the same amount, that somebody who owns a $100,000 house in 2020 or in 2019 and into 2020, the following year would actually pay more in taxes because their rate will go up. And so this is why I'm suggesting this reduction in the levy. It's not a huge reduction. Nobody's going to get rich off of it, but I think that it's going to result in securing that we do not have a rate increase on our residents coming out of this COVID, which is a time in which raising taxes is the worst idea.
Alderman Potter, clarification. What did you intend to do with the additional $100,000?
Send it to parks.
Parks
Send
is
it
your
to parks or, or part of the library or something, we, if I can continue on, we go through this discussion every year. If you, if the assessed valuation and the calculations come out at 16,135,000, there are some communities that suggest that you haven't raised property taxes because, if you don't get any tax appeals, then everybody's rate stays the same. And we always try and thread the needle or whatever. And then at other times, communities say if you keep the levy the same, you haven't raised the rate. We're dealing with a lot of issues here, and I don't think it's unreasonable to assess the same levy that we had last year. That's basically saying we're not raising taxes.
Correct.
Anybody else have any comments before we go to vote on this amendment? Roll call on the amendment, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Nay.
Went.
Alderman Wendt on the amendment?
Nay, sorry, I was mute.
That's okay.
Alderman Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Nay.
Schoonmaker.
Nay.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Nay.
3 ayes, 5 nays.
The amendment does not pass. We're now considering the original motion on the floor, which is what was presented by staff. Any discussion on this original motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Nay.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Nay.
Berg.
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 nays.
That motion carries. Carol?
The next thing is, it's on that same page, number 4, under tab 2. is to address the SSAs number 5 and 6. And again, we would be looking at the total dollars that they are wanting to establish for a levy rate. And then Dirk is going to work his magic with the county in order to get that rate worked out. But both of those SSA boards have certified their budgets, and for 21, SSA number 5 is wanting $132,475, which brings it back to the levy the levy that they had back in 2018. And then SSA number 6 is keeping it the same at $269,255.
So those are the targeted amounts we need to get to them. Because of the way the county has changed its procedure in calculating the SSA levy when they are within a TIF district, the mayor intervened on this past year, but they would not agree to submit to the same knuckling under that they did this year. You're going to see a different levy amount. In terms of quick math, they're no longer applying the levy of the SSA across the current EAV. They're going backwards in time to the base EAV of the TIF. So if, for example, in TIF 1, the value has gone from, say, $100 million to $500 million worth of property value, 5 times the amount, when you levy for $1 of SSA, it turns out to levy $1 against the base, and so the tax bill is now $5. And so we were getting 5 times the tax bills for people because the county decided to go back and apply against base EAV. Again, the mayor managed to intervene last year and stop that from happening. They calculated it by hand, as they always had against the current EAV. They were told us they would never do that again. So what you're going to get in my example is, if they asked for $100,000, I'm going to divide it by 5. That will generate $20,000 of SSA levy and then another $80,000 in the TIF. So it will be $100,000 of tax revenue. And the statutes allow us to move that $80,000 that's now newly generated in the TIF over to the SSA for their purposes, so that we keep their tax bills in the same. It's just going to be a mathematical 2-step. So you're going to see a quite low levy for them comparatively, but at the end of the day, they'll get all their money. We just have to move the TIF money over.
You looking for a motion?
Move to accept staff's recommendation for SSA 5 and 6 levy for 2021.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Went and a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion? Anybody want to see those calculations run? No? Roll call.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Bird? Aye. 8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Carol, do we have any more decision spots?
No, not on the levy rate.
Okay, so can you just kind of walk us through, maybe invest another, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, kind of walk us through the books so that we can study them while we're gone? And then maybe we could entertain a handful of questions, if there's some questions that would be helpful to the entire council. If it's something that's quite specific, that you think that maybe the other council members won't be particularly interested in, that'd be helpful if you would take that offline and work with Carol directly. Go ahead, Carol.
Certainly. The next section, just so you know where it's at, it's the fund equity statements. It's in the same format that you've been getting our monthly financial statements in. And as you look through the books over the next week, I just wanted to point out, it's actually under it's tab number 3, page 11, that the general fund, although we are drawing the fund balance down, staff's recommendation with the general fund budget as is with revenues and expenditures, we'll have a net fund balance of $12,006,000, which is 27.43% or 99 days. So it is above our fund balance policy. And although we are drawing that fund balance down, part of it, again, I'm not terribly worried, because as we walk into years 22 and 23, we are very fortunate that some of our TIF advances that we've been giving from the general fund to the TIF are dropping off. And we'll have several $1 million coming, being able to stay within the general fund over the next 3 to 5 years. So even though we're drawing it down, again, our fund balance policy says that we can draw the fund balance down if it's over the 25% level. I feel comfortable with that, and I'm still praying that some of our revenues do indeed come back over the course of next year. So you'll see all the fund equities that are in here. The next section is personal.
Carol?
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Went?
Yeah, so are we talking about $1.1 million, $1.150 that we, if we wanted to bring our fund balance down to 90 days, that we've got to use to maybe shore up the deficiencies in the library and the parks?
Yes, and it is in that range, Alderman.
So how much, just so we've got an idea, are we talking about for the library and the parks? Are they down?
The library and parks, the fund balance that I don't have it right in front of me, I can turn back the page. I think the library had about 238,000, but I do need to clarify on the library, and I had highlighted it in yellow in several places throughout the book. I heard on the 24th that there was interest in potentially using some of that excess to give back to those funds. So I put in there a transfer of $150,000 in the current year. And those numbers have now changed to the 100 and the 200,000. So that will slightly fluctuate these fund balances. But to keep them ongoing, I know that if the library was going to be fully staffed, they would be needing about 500,000 ongoing. I don't think Brian is looking for that right now. He had said that if they'd have 150,000 ongoing, that he could make things work to try to restructure the library. I'm certain they would be looking for any additional money, but he had communicated to me that 150 ongoing would be very helpful. In regards to parks, again, they have a shortfall. They are only 170,000 to the good, and of that was the 150,000 that I had already transferred. So they were down to 20,000. You've given back now, it's 100,000. So
they may spend it, so I don't know if that really puts us in a stronger position coming into 2021, right? I mean,
I'm so sorry, I missed what you said.
They may spend that money, so it wouldn't really impact the fund balance at the beginning of the year, because I would suspect that they won't just put it into reserves and have it sit there.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Well, one of the things that's impacting the park's ability to spend it is with all the new guidance that comes with every mitigation tier, there are fewer and fewer things parks can run indoors. So now we're already pulling back. The sports guidance is allowing them to continue to operate.
True.
But if we go to another tier, the programs have to be overhauled, and many of the park rec departments across the state and the park districts are having to cancel programs. So they may not be able to, out of their hands, spend it this calendar year.
What are your thoughts on the
They may be inclined to what you said at the end. They may be inclined to hang on to it to help their deficit going into 21, because it is significant. It's close to $500,000, not including those two positions.
Yes, if they were fully funding all the items that they wanted to have funded, it would be about $500,000 as a deficit. I know that the highest priority is to try to get 2 of the groundskeepers funded that we talked about on the 24th, and maybe doing it for a partial year, like hiring in April and May.
Oh, I see, using that money in the springtime when you can get the most bang for your buck. I understand. I just didn't know, I just didn't want to make that assumption that that was their intention and bank on it.
And then for parks, again, they don't have a lot of money other than what the council allocates through a levy rate or for a transfer. And so they were also looking for some assistance on some capital project funding, things that have been deferred kind of year after year. They haven't been able to work through. And there is a list in the book as well, what some of those projects are over the next 5 years that they'd like to have completed. I had earmarked some money in the CIP, and we're going to discuss that on the 17th as well. But I am showing a placeholder highlighted in yellow for council's consideration of $350,000. And it could be any amount. I mean, if the council feels that they'd like to allocate something ongoing to help those capital projects of the parks.
So it's 150,000
In operating.
supplement for the library and 350,000 supplement beyond what the levy allocation, the whatever transfer over from the levy would be for the parks. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Went.
Yeah, Carol, am I missing it? So on the park fund, there's a $900,000 in capital projects for 2021?
Yeah, that includes the pickleball.
Okay. Pushing, okay.
Yes.
So it's 350 plus the pickleball, basically?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess what I'd like to see is if we've got this $1,150,000 a recommendation on, I mean, obviously we can't use it all because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other things through the budget that we've got to clear up, as like hiring back positions and those sorts of things. But you know, what the recommendation from Brian is and from Eric, you know, if it's 150,000 or 200,000, what is it that they need to make this work, to make sure that their fund balance will be right by the end of the year, knowing that things may change, like was talked about with the parks, things closing down, and the library may be needing to do more things as the schools keep closed. But see what their recommendation to pull out of that 1.5 million to transfer over to those two places so that we settle up on those two funds.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that, or we'll bring it back on the 17th?
I think the 17th, don't you, Alderman Went? Or were you making a, yep, I think the 17th.
Oh, the 17th.
We're just kind of talking out loud so we understand it.
And then I would like to also highlight in the general fund, I need to find my notes or I'll talk it off the top of my head. I did want to let you know, we did put in a contingency. So part of that drawdown that you saw in the general fund down to the 99 days does include $750,000 for potential restructuring or hiring back of vacant positions. It also includes $440,000 or a 1% contingency for council's discretion. That's on top of the 750, another 440,000 for ongoing things. And then during our fund balance policy review, Alderman Parker had recommended that we look at doing a 5-year average and trying to smooth out any vacation banks and sick banks that get paid out. And so we took an average of 5 years, and so we have also added back into the budget $164,000 average in the general fund for vacation and $213,000 for sick. Then part of the formula also was Alderman Went had said we did away with the contra accounts, but we put in a percentage of variance. And how we did it this year was based on the last 3 years average of how the actual fund came in, red or the black. And in the general fund, that contra account then, which actually subtracted an amount, is about it was about $340,000. So that is all included in that drawdown for the general fund, and we still have 99 days. So I'm really pleased, and I do have to say, it truly is a result of all of council's guidance and direction and the hard work of all the staff in every department to make that work with being, short on staff and getting by with less revenues and less operating funds. So it has put us in a very good position going forward. I would like to say that I do want us to continue to be very conservative going into 21. As you know, all the COVID numbers are up, and there is still uncertainty that is out there. I'm hopeful by maybe mid-year things will start to pick up, but if we kind of continue this pace and we look very carefully at every position that we approve for a rehire, I think we'll be just fine throughout 21 and into the future for 2022.
Thank you, Kim.
If we continue to walk through the book real quick, you'll see a lot of things on personnel. Most of it you have already received. We put it in your packet so it would all be in one place for you. there's some interesting charts, and I won't go through them, but we did some charts on the age of our employees, so that although, we had some retirements and we had a lot of people leave this year, we are actually going to have another 48 people leaving at some point because they are over the age of 56. 48 people over the age of 56. So we'll continue to have some retirements, I anticipate. As part of the payroll, I just wanted to point out, again, Alderman Parker, and I think other aldermen as well, they like to see the splits of our employees, how they're split between various departments. We've included, it's kind of a big spreadsheet, but it's every position in the city. There's a big copy here for the splits that you can review. Going forward then on the general fund, again, general fund is balanced, but there's some good.
Under tab 5.
Yes, under tab 5. If you turn to page 4 and 5, you'll see some charts there just on the history of our fund balances. And again, the council should be very proud of those numbers because they've been very fiscally responsible over a number of years in order to achieve those numbers. On page number, if you keep under tab 5, page number 6, it's just a quick look at those major revenues that are just in the general fund alone. And we've talked about several times how we're kind of mirroring the revenues in the current 2020 year that came in reduced. If you look at those 2 blue columns, most of those revenues are staying exactly the same. We're not increasing them, so we're keeping them at a lower level than what I anticipate them to come in at. Any questions on that? The next thing to think about is debt summary. It's just history, so you can take a peek at this. When we hit the CIP next week, I do want to ask council, I put in some bond scenarios depending on what Joe and JD bring forward. Interest rates are, as you know, at an all-time low, and if there was any interest in trying to, bond for additional projects, I've got scenarios in here and you can see what the impact would be. But it's the debt schedule right now. Our debt's going to be paid off in 10 years. The next one is the CIP, the next tab, CIP. And it would be nice if you do have time to take a look at this before the 17th. And if you look at the second, it's the second big pullout. It's on page, keep needing to put my glasses on page 3. That is the 2021 scenario. That was the last one that Joe had brought forward. He may be updating, Mayor, I know you had a committee meeting. Maybe this will change ever so slightly here by the 17th. But this was the page that we had worked on going into that committee meeting. But on this page, you'll see there's a yellow line almost to the bottom where it says additional added council projects. Back on the 24th, council had stated interest that let's go ahead and add more projects closer down to where our fund balances are. And so those are unidentified numbers, but as you see, as you go across the page, it's almost $1.3 million of additional projects that could be pulled forward and still be within our fund balance policy. And then you'll also see the second yellow line, where is the parks, where I did an earmark of $350,000. The next tab then is the Parks Fund, and we've kind of talked about that now. But within the Parks materials, Eric has prepared a priority list that, based on what council would choose for funding, that would be his priority of adding items back in. And you can take a look at those. And the same for the library under the next.
Your Honor. Your Honor?
Yes.
As it pertains to the park board capital improvement thing, I guess I'd like to make a motion that the staff direct, or that the council direct staff to look into the Stephen Parks, all of those to be done out of TIF 2/TIF 6 funds. I think that was able to do a little research that those are eligible, and there's some improvements we could do to Stevens Park out of that TIF, which maybe long-term will free up some of the capital improvement, and we may even be able to do it sooner than later if we do it that way.
Okay, we can.
So that's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Alderman Parker. Is there any discussion on that idea? Roll call.
Alderman Williams. Parker.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Shoemaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Bird. Aye. Eight ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. Carol, go ahead. And Carol, how much longer do you have?
You tell me. I
I
can do.
don't think we have much time because we've got a significant amount on the council. So, maybe some big picture comments about the rest
The
of the
next
vote.
ones, the next sections that I would just say, TIFs, they're all balanced. There's some good summaries in there with the general fund to show how there's going to be additional savings in the general fund. And then we have our internal service funds where I do want to go through like all the fleet recommended purchases as well as facility purchases. So we can hit those cash flows, and we can do that pretty high level next week as well.
Great. That's it?
Yep.
There's a whole bunch more. Okay, good. Are there any questions for Carol before we kind of go back into our corners? And then as you have questions, I would recommend that we feed them to Carol. And when Carol gets a question that feels like it would be of interest to the council, if you would share that back with the council.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. That'd be helpful so that we then have all the same information when we go into our discussion next week. Is there anything else that we want Carol to cover before we go back with our books? Thank you, Carol. You did a very nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty, do you have any closing comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you. I'd now like to open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No, we didn't.
Okay, thank you. And I don't think we have anybody from the public here. So I'm going to, without any further business in the committee of the whole, we're going to close out of the committee of the whole and go into our council agenda. Alderman Williams, will we have an invocation this evening? We will have an invocation this evening, but we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, I simply ask that you bless this city council with wisdom, courage, and your guidance on this, the 245th anniversary of the founding of the United States Marine Corps, and tomorrow, the day we honor all veterans. I beg you find this council worthy to represent those neighbors who answered the call of their nation. I ask this in your holy name.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Present.
Parker.
Present.
Wentz.
Present.
Moyer.
Present.
Schoonmaker.
Present.
Waldron.
Present.
Bird.
Present.
Your Honor, request approval of committee of the whole and council meeting minutes and executive session minutes of October 27th, 2020. Resolutions. Council Bill 1111-2020, a resolution authorizing the exception to the moratorium on hiring pursuant to Resolution 1051-2020 to hire 2 firefighters in January 2021 and thereafter when practicable based on retirements. Council Bill 1112-2020, a resolution authorizing an exception to the moratorium on hiring pursuant to Resolution 1051-2020 to hire a water plant manager, utilities laboratory technician, and water distribution mechanic. Council Bill 1113-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to an agreement with Midland Davis Corporation for storm debris collection for the amount of $22,985. Council Bill 1114-2020, a resolution authorizing and ratifying nunc-pro-tunc the action of the interim city administrator posting and advertising for the position of Community and Economic Development Director with an annual salary of $127,149.
Motion to approve the, sorry.
One more.
Sorry.
Council Bill 1115-2020, a resolution authorizing and ratifying nunc-pro-tunc the action of the interim city administrator posting and advertising for the position of Director of Engineering, city engineer for an annual salary of $127,149.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, Parker.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Went.
We have a second by Alderman Nguyen. Original motion by Alderman Parker. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
The motion carries.
Non-consent agenda resolutions. Council 1116-2020, a resolution authorizing the appointment of Laura Uloa, and am I saying that right out? To the position of Assistant Finance Director and ratifying nunc pro tunc the actions of the interim city administrator in connection therewith.
Motion to approve 11/16/2020.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Nay.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Nay.
Berg?
Aye.
6 ayes, 2 nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1117-2020, a resolution authorizing an increase in annual salary for Police Captain Brian Johnson.
Motion to approve 11/17/2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by Alderman Williams. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll call.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1118-2020, a resolution authorizing the promotion of Chris Mathias to Land Development Manager.
Motion to table 11/18/2020.
Second.
And
We have a motion to table by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Berg. Roll call, please.
and Your Honor,
Yep.
No discuss-
specifically, this is to table until we have a economic development director in place, so that person can be in part of the decision-making process for the land development manager.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
I'm sorry, for clarification, what exactly are we voting on?
To table.
To table it.
To table this.
Yeah, so
Aye.
instead of approving or denying, it's to
Aye.
table.
Alderman Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Nay.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
The motion to table passes.
Council Bill 1119-2020, a resolution authorizing the promotion of David Rowett to IT Manager.
Motion to approve 11/19/2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Berg. Is someone eating pistachios?
Kevin.
Kevin, are you?
No,
eating
it's not. It's Parker.
No, he's muted.
Oh, it's Berg.
It's. No, Berg sounds like birds, it's not pistachios. Okay, I got a little distracted. Where are we at?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, please. Thank you.
Well, unless, I didn't know if you asked for discussion.
Oh, is there any discussion on this item? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Wentz?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Council Bill 1120-2020, a resolution approving Executive Order 2020-11-5, instituting an emergency procurement program for bars and restaurants, contracting for implementation services in response to Governor Pritzker's order of Tier 1 mitigation measures for Region 2.
Motion to approve 11/20/2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Went?
Aye.
Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker?
Aye.
Waldron?
Aye.
Berg?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
First reading ordinances. Council Bill 3033-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Buildings and Other Construction and Building Services of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 8-7500, Crime-Free Residential Rental Program, subparagraph A. Council Bill 3034-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Liquor of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Section 4-4110, Sales of Single Servings of Alcoholic Beverages, and Sections 4-3302, 3303, 3304, 3305, 3306, 3307, 3309, 3310, 3315 concerning the sale of packaged goods, and deleting Section 4-3208, license fees, subparagraph G in its entirety. And that is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Janine.
Thank you.
Do we have any miscellaneous business this evening? I'm going to walk us around the room for council business. I'll start with Alderman Williams.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Parker.
Your Honor, thank you. I would like to just extend my very dearest thanks to all the veterans within the city of Moline and everywhere, actually, but specifically to council members Williams, Walderman, and Moyer for their service to our country with Veterans Day being tomorrow. Thank you guys very much, seriously.
Thank you. Alderman Went.
Ditto. I also, this was something that was brought up, I don't know if everybody's aware, that in Rock Island, they were passing an ordinance because they've got some concern about personal storage facilities, the proliferation of them taking over retail spots and those sorts of things. And so they are implementing a user fee on those. And I thought with looking for some ways to finance, parks, library, or whatever with a consistent income, those areas in Moline used to be retail. They were bringing in sales tax. They were bringing in they're now being taken over by storage facilities. I'd like to move to direct staff, not that we're voting to do this, but to come back to see what that would look like and what the income level would be if we did a similar personal storage user fee on those.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Went and a second by Alderman Berg. One concern that I have is that we made a commitment to not raise taxes or increase fees. I feel like this is a new fee and it may not align with that commitment to the community. What are your thoughts? What's your argument against that?
And I appreciate that, Your Honor. I have no idea what this looks like. One of our neighboring communities is doing it. I just would like to see what it looks like. I'm not necessarily supporting it. I just want to see what it looks like.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Went.
Aye.
Potter.
Nay.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Aye.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Aye. 7 ayes, 1 nay.
That motion carries. Did you have anything else this evening, Alderman Went?
No, I just wanted to thank our crews that are out there picking up the leaves. I know there's a lot coming down and a lot more came down today. So thank you for getting out there and cleaning those leaves up. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Alderman Went. Alderman Potter?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Moyer?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Schoonmaker?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Waldron?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Berg?
Nothing, Your Honor.
I have one thing that I wanted to share with you, and I'll scan it and send it to you. I won't read the whole letter, but this is from Vita and Harold Luth, and it's just a really nice letter about leaf pickup and their experience. And I think that although they name the 3 individuals that were specifically on that crew, I think it goes for all of our crews working out there. But I just want to read you the final couple bits of it. We want to say thank you to these 3 men for taking a few extra moments to graciously help get the last of the fallen leaves into the truck and share their positive attitude with us. Please relay our message to them. Thank you, Bill, Corey, and Chris. So, I mean, there's a lot of good news out there. People appreciate that service. So I wanted to share that with you. I don't have anything else. Marty, do you have anything for the council? Do any of the staff that are here this evening want to address the council? Is there any public comment this evening? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to adjourn.
No.
Oh.
No.
You can, but you're not going to get a second.
I have a motion, Your Honor.
Yes, Alderman Williams.
Your Honor, I make a motion that the council convene an executive session for the purpose of discussion of pending probable or imminent litigation, 5 ILCS 120/2C11, and appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C1.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. A second by Alderman Waldron. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Alderman Williams.
He said aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Wentz.
Boy.
Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker.
Don't leave, Alderman.
Waldron.
Aye.
Berg.
Don't leave.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Please clear the council chamber. We'll have a brief executive session.